Shout out to US ARC and all US ARC members. If you don't know what US ARC is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what US ARC is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a US ARC member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with US ARC organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a US ARC member. And if you can't become a US ARC member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what US ARC is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every US ARC member and US ARC supporter out there. True.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Episode 596 on the Treat Tuesday with the one and only Eugene Bessette. What is up, Eugene?
Good evening, fellas. How are y'all doing?
Hi, Eugene.
What's up, man?
Eugene, you know my friends here. I don't know if you know these two guys. I'm not sure if you've you know their names. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Bill Stiegel or Marshall Mendez. Ever heard of these guys?
Yeah. I remember when we taught them how to spell chondro.
Eugene, it's really good to see you, and what an honor it is to have you on the show. These episodes are always fun, but when we have somebody of your caliber and history, you know, it just I've been excited all week for this one. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know, I give the glory to God, and I thanks for the opportunity to share with you. And when I did that gig a couple weeks ago with Chad, and I'll be honest with you, it was a real grind, and I didn't want to do it, and I knew I needed to do it, and I knew it would be good therapy for me to do it. And after I did it, I felt 110% better. And then, you know, MJ reminded me, and I said, sure, you know, I'll be glad to do your show and get with you guys and everything else. And, you know, one thing in this, we're all too busy, and it seems like busyness is the greatest evil there is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it flies by, the weeks, the months, the years, the decades, and everything else. And but no, I'm excited about tonight. And Bill, I'm blown away that you said it's been that long since you retired. I thought you just retired last year, but you said 7 years. That's a chunk of time. And Marshall, what are you doing real quick? Are you gainfully employed? Are you on welfare, or what are you doing?
I'm still employed. And just doing the snakes as a side hustle, passion project, whatever you want to call it.
What are you doing? I mean, we know Bill's retired and he weighs his money every day.
I work in the construction industry.
Doing what?
I'm operations director at a commercial construction company.
Do you like it?
Yeah. You know, it's for work. You know.
Was that
Would I rather be breeding snakes full time? Yes.
I don't know, man. Let me tell you something. It's one thing when you make your hobby your business, and you know, I've gone through a lot of transformation. You guys haven't been here in decades, and I think one of the hardest things is my plan B is that plan A's got to work. And, you know, and I always tell people, you know, you need to have an exit strategy. Then you need to have a mechanism to execute the exit strategy. And I sit around here and I talk to a few people in this business. It's like, how do you retire? How do you get out of this business? And either you die or you die. I mean, it's just that's it. And it's sad to say. So be thankful that you have the construction job and that you have the opportunity, Marshall, to do this on the side, because I know how passionate you are. And I mean, we saw the lights burning years ago, and I'm trying to think, I think it was Greg Maxwell. I remember me and Trooper were at a show in Tampa decades ago, and this kid came walking up to us, and, you know, this is the beat up Greg Maxwell time right now. so y'all can jump in. And Greg was making these melamine cages, and getting a hemorrhoidal problem carrying all these heavy wooden cages around for rack systems. And he walks up to my table, and trying to think whose show it was. I don't know if it was Tom Cartland did it or the other guy, Doug, that was the paralyzed guy. I forget Doug's last name. Super nice guy. But anyways, and he walks up to the table, and I saw this guy, and he kind of looked like, like a homeless man, kind of deranged going down the street. He walks up to the table and he points and he says, "What are these? What is this? What is that?" And everything like that. And I said, "These are green tree pythons, and on and on and on." And he just sat there, and Trooper looked at me and he says, "Oh, we got one now. We got this boy. We'll reel his ass in." And we did. And he spent a lot of money, and he became the world's authority on green tree pythons. So, like everybody is, right? But he did write some good books, and he did do some good editing, and he did a lot of good stuff. And, Marshall, I think it was a good thing for him to change, to get out of that lumber business. And so don't begrudge or belittle, what you're doing, because you're blessed, and it allows you the opportunity to do these other things.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, the pressure of having to produce or having to, would take away from the enjoyment that I get from the snake, snake business, if you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think that's on everybody's mind in this down economy. We thought 23 was tough. Well, 24 made 23 look like a walk in the park, and 23 made 22 question what your sanity as to what you're doing. This economy globally is in the toilet. Hell, we got 20 employees, and all we do is ball pythons and some boas and a crap ton of colubers, because that's what sells. That's what you can scale up. That's what you can count on, And it's been hard, Marshall, letting go of stuff. It was hard to let go of green trees, but looking back, somebody said, "You ever do green trees?" And I said, "Yeah, I did them for a while." And obviously, this guy didn't know anything of the history of stuff, but Trooper and I hit it pretty hard, Marshall, for 28 straight years. And I told Trooper, I said, "It's time to let it go." I said, "I think people get it. People understand it. We've done away with all the myths and everything else. And of course, people are making up stuff. You got all these influencers out there that think they know everything, and that's fine. They have their place. But it was a great run, Bill, and guys like you and Marshall and some other names that I'm sure that I haven't thought of in a while will pop up tonight. That's what I'm looking forward to, and it's jarred my hard drive. And it's just been a real privilege to work with so many people. I told one of my employees a couple months ago, we were talking in a meeting, and I said, my payday in this business, Bill, it's not the money, because we've gone through a lot of money in 45 years of, legitimately being in business. But I said, my payday is the relationships, and watching somebody come in here and find out they don't want to do snakes, but yet they want to go do this, and they end up, excelling and getting their PhD degree and going in another field and finding out what they don't want to do, or they might like reptiles, but they don't like them, or they don't realize what it takes to commit, to making it meet. So there's a part of me that wishes I was sometimes doing something else, Bill, and could just, play around with this on the side, but that's not the path that I chose. It's not the path the good Lord, had me go down, and I'm happy with it. But it has really, really been tough. But the hardest thing for us guys to do, MJ, is for us to say no to projects. Like for me, getting rid of all the boas that I had. I had so many cool species of boas that I got from Gus Renfro and from Uncle Benny and people like that, and just they don't scale up, and Florida's not the best place to do boas. It's just not cold enough, and we had a lot of success, but not continuous success, and we're farmers. It's crazy. But anyways, enough of that.
Eugene, you mentioned that you're not working with green trees now, but I think it's important. And MJ, I don't want to. Obviously, this is your podcast, but I think it's really important that there's been such a recent growth in green tree popularity and new keepers, and I think unfortunately we have tried to keep the founding members to the forefront. I think that's one of the things that makes the chondro community different, but I think even now sometimes we don't do enough to let the newer keepers know about people like Eugene, and so I'm super excited. A lot of people watch this podcast, a lot of chondro people watch this podcast. And, I think it's just so important that we introduce them to you
And I want to add to that real quick, Eugene, because if I had a nickel for any time you've been brought up on this podcast, I got to tell you, I'd be a rich guy. You've been brought for the last 5 years of me running this network. You've been brought up so many times from some of the heaviest people we have in the industry. So I just want to say, like, exactly what Bill said. I think we need to really understand the relationship with you and Chondros, Trooper Walsh. If you don't mind, if we could go from there.
No, Trooper was a brother from another mother, and I really appreciate the compliments. And you know, it's really all these other people that you're talking about and the people that come on, that made it worthwhile, you know. And I told Trooper we lived in a time that nobody else is ever going to live in. And, you know, that was the payday, the opportunity. Like, he got one of the first 12 chondros that hatched off in captivity from, oh God, what the heck's the guy's name? He was the curator of the zoo out there at Steinhardt Aquarium.
Yeah, he wrote the book. He wrote the book, Adventures in Green Tree Python.
Was it Carl Sweetak?
Sweetak.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Trooper got one. The zoo, National Zoo got one. Baraducci got one down there. I think Ernie Wagner got one. I mean, they kind of got dispersed around, and eventually Trooper wheeled and dealed, and Trooper knew how to wheel and deal. You know, it was good. But, you know, it just the things that happen and all the misnomers about green trees, and then, of course, my relationship with Dr. Van Meyer. I mean, you know, talk about relationships. I mean, I when I interview people to work, you know, and I ask them, and they're most of them between the ages of 18 and 22, 23, maybe, this being a college town, you know, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what's the most important word to learn? And of course, that word is relationship. And I can tell you, fellas, I mean, it's all about that one word. And you know, Dr. Van Meyer opened so many doors for me, but it's just a matter of, you know, I met him in '66 when I was 15. And he just came to work at the University of Florida. He came down from upstate New York, from Rochester. And it's all in his autobiography, Dr. Bob. It's a great book. You can buy it on Amazon. It's called Dr. Bob. It's got 2 big, heavy chapters in there about reptiles. One of the chapters is listed Arthur Jones. And a lot of people don't know who Arthur Jones was, the guy that founded Nautilus. But it's a great read. It would make a great movie. And it's a self-autobiography, but it's got such a phenomenal brain. And to read what he went through in his life and all the things that he did and how he used reptiles, especially snake hearts, you know, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it would be, I don't know if Trooper is up physically to doing one of these shows. You know, his health, Bill, has been struggling for a long time. And Marshall, I know you know some guys that are close to him up there in the DC area. Their names escape me right now. I can see faces,
Yeah.
but I just can't remember name. Tim,
Tim Morris. Yeah.
Tim Morris, yeah, stuff like that. So, but you know, all those guys that are out there, I don't know if is Kevin Koff still doing green tree pythons?
I'm pretty sure he just does basins now.
Basins, emerald tree basins.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you ever heard this story, but years ago, Kevin was volunteering and working for me, and God, he was up my butt on questions all the time and everything. And before he came to work for me, you know, I was kind of just egging him on, and I said, you know, if you'll call me back so-and-so, and then I'll give you all the secrets, you know. And he said, okay. And we went round and round. Of course, I, you know, delayed him, and I put it off, and I just was driving him up a wall. Finally, I got him on the phone, you know, and I said, all right, are you ready? Are you ready? And I mean, I was just, you know, like a fight promoter, you know, in his face. I said, are you ready for the secret? Do you want to be the biggest, baddest, best hombre there is with green tree pythons? Do you want to rule the world? Do you want to kaleidoscope the colors and blow people's minds like Dr. Timothy Leary did with LSD? Do you want this? How bad do you want this? You know, he's going, I want it, damn it, I want it. And I said, what's the secret? I said, you got a ballpoint pen? He said, yeah. I said, you got 2 ballpoint pens? Why? Because you're going to run out of ink, you know. So, yeah, I got 2 ballpoint pens, and I was just screwing with him over the phone. And I had him going. I could hear, her start boom, 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 beating through the phone. You know, and I said, "Oh, I got this boy right where I want him." You know, and I said, "All right, here it is. Be ready to write. I'm going to give you the secret to being the world's best at green trees pythons." He said, "I'm ready. And I said, "Here it is." And then I said, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, okay." I mean, I was just driving up a wall, like one of those infomercials, you know, that tell you, you know, they never give you an answer. 8 hours later, you finally get an answer. Anyways, I said, here's the secrets. Never quit. And I hung up the phone. That's the secret. Never quit.
Never
And he
quit.
called me back 2 or 3 times, and I just let it ring and let it ring and let it ring. This son of a bitch, you. You're going around and around and around. And I love Kevin. Kevin was a great guy. Had a lot of fun with him. I learned a lot. He taught me a lot.
I got no hours for Lindsay. Is that?
Lindsay?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. My bookkeeper's.
You're good.
No time card for Lindsay at all.
Who's Lindsay?
Lindsay Stokes or Stokes?
Stokes?
Man's always on the clock.
I don't know. Just leave it. I'll
Always working.
Always working, bro.
Yeah, bookkeeper.
I mean,
my
submit this.
yeah. Go ahead and submit it. We never shut down here at OS. Trust me, never. Lindsay, I'm trying to think of what she looks like. Isn't that terrible? I'm doing a podcast talking about one of my employees. I mean, Lindsay, I know the name. Oh, you know what? She's on vacation this week.
Oh, well, then that's a good reason why she's not here.
All right. Yeah, just no hours to report. But anyways, Kevin was a really good guy, and I'm beating up on Kevin. But it really is, guys, it really is the secret to successes. Are you willing to, have more slugs born in your house than anybody else's? Are you willing to see more chondros, pip, crawl out of the egg and die, and stuff like that? And, oh, man, I mean, the horror stories and the things that have happened are to have a female prolapse and drop 32 eggs in your hand, and then she prolapses both oviducts, and you're sitting in the air with a cage full of eggs, and you got to go set them, and then this girl's sitting there with like 7 inches of these kind of like, looks like a condom hanging out of her butt, and it's your oviducts. And then where's the sugar? And here we go. 3 hours later, you finally get them all put back in, and stuff like that, and on and on and on. Oh, and it started at 2 a.m. So by sunrise, you're having coffee and you feel like some obstetrician, Ophidian obstetrician to be exact. So, but I mean, how blessed can you be? I mean, it's so much fun to do stuff like that. You out of here? You're 100%?
I got it all set up.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
For you.
All right.
I'll see you on Saturday.
Yep, see you on Saturday. Thanks, Max. It's family, bro. Anyways, and those are the things that I want to hear from people. I had a guy one time, he came up to Trooping Me, and I think this was when Wayne first had his shows, and they were in Orlando back in the early 90s. And he came up to me, and he was apologizing to me, Marshall, and he said, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed to tell you, but I got 27 slugs." And I said, and I got excited. I said, "Outstanding, man." I said, "That's a great year. You got 27 slugs." I said, "You got that girl to ovulate. You got her to, to the whole vital-genesis. You got her to go through all the process. Yeah, I know they weren't fertile, but I said, you had a huge, successful year." And I said, it's, and I don't know what the guy did. Hopefully he never quit. But I said, the worst thing that can happen is you breed chondros for the first time. You get 34 eggs, and all 31 of them hatch out. And you think, oh, well, this shit's easy.
Yeah.
But that guy that had a clutch of slugs, and he was humble enough to come tell me, and he said, "What did I do wrong?" And I said, "You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Welcome to life. It sucks." You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes that's the hardest part, trying to figure out. There's some things you can't control. You think you can control it all. But
True.
But one of the things that drives me up a wall, Bill, is, and you've seen it because you've been in the medical field. Most men think they're God, and what we need are more women. And if you stop and think, if you stop and think about it, God's best creation was a woman, because He created man, and He says, "Oh my God, there's not going to be enough bars if I don't get him a woman." You know what I'm saying? So God created a woman because He knew how pathetic we were without him. And I don't know where you are spiritually, but if you go back to the Garden of Eden, Adam didn't choose God; he chose to hang out with Eve. So how good was Eve? She was mighty fine, if you understand what I'm saying. So man chose a woman for a brief amount of time when he could have chosen God for eternity, and the rest is history. But seriously, all things aside, I mean, there needs to be more women in the reptile business, and this is one of the many, many flaws, because, I mean, I have 20 employees, and I think 16 of them are females. And if I could, I'd have all 20 of them be females. Because women work better, they're smarter, they get shit done, they're very compassionate, they're nurturers, they're caregivers, and they don't mind coming in early, and they don't mind staying late. Men, oh my God, you think they were giving birth to an elephant, So, I mean, I'm a young guy. I've been doing this a few minutes, but of course I'm looking for the next, anybody's out there looking for the next Trooper or Marshall or Bill or MJ. Or anything like that. Show me the next Mark Bell, or show me somebody, the next Bob Clark or Pete Call, and bless his heart, and or Uncle Vin Russo, you know, and everything else. And where are all the new people and stuff? And of course, I don't spend a lot of time on the internet, but there's something that I'm looking for the women, and the women that do this business really can crush it more so than anybody else. And, you know, from a business point of view, not a hobby point of view. The problem, Marshall, is too many people, and don't make this mistake, don't run your hobby like a hobby, run it like a business. Because if you run your hobby like a hobby, you're going to go broke.
Yeah.
Sure. Somebody's going to tell you got to knock this shit off because you're losing your ass. This is worse than cocaine, you know?
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
for sure.
But if you treat your hobby like a business and make it profitable, and not just profitable, Marshall, in terms of money, but profitable in terms of
fulfillment,
relationships, you know, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
oh my God, fellas, it's just, I mean, I know a lot of people. I just don't have enough friends. And I'll be honest with you, I'm too stinking busy. I'll be the first to admit, and my late wife would agree 100% that you're too damn busy. So,
Eugene,
I don't know, guys.
why don't you tell us what you're doing now? What keeps you busy? What do you do every day? What keeps you the busiest? Is it taking care of the animals, or is it more running the business aspect of OS? What is it that keeps you the busiest every day?
Writing checks.
You still write checks?
Yeah, I'm old school. No, I tell people that's my job, to write checks. Running the business, Bill. I mean, you know, it's trying to get the business to the size of where it'll run on its own, and we're not quite there. I mean, we're 6 days a week on the colubrids. We're almost 6 days a week on the ball pythons. We're 7 days a week in the rat house. And so we have a 3-legged stool. And in that 3-legged stool, there's a rodent operation. We produce around 5,000 to 6,000 rats a week. We're staffed 7 days a week. Colubrid operation, you know, we got 6 huge colonies. We produce probably, 19 to 23,000 colubrids a year. I think we can do better. Balls, we produce, 9,000 balls a year. So some years more than others, because they're going to go 3 out of 4 years, and it's a question of how they all line up. And it was the same way with the chondros when back in the day in the 90s, and Cindy and I were really going crazy in the early mid 90s. I mean, I had 100 females in production here that were being bred. And you talk about, getting out there and feeding them and everything else like that at night. And then I had some of Trooper's animals because he couldn't keep everything in NZP. So I had his shit down here, and taking care of them. And then all the grow outs and everything else. And those were crazy times. And we had to do the numbers, MJ, so that we could learn what we needed to learn. You need the data. That's one of the things that Van Meyer pounded into me. We needed the data. And I bought all these medical incubators from Former Scientific, and we were measuring the PO2 to PCO2. We were doing metabolic rate. We were looking at the CO2. And I mean, we just got nerdy crazy, and everything else. And I just had so many questions for so many people about what was going on with the physiology of that fetus, and on and on and on and on. And to this day, nobody can answer those questions. And, I tell people there's no institution of higher learning that teaches you how to be an Ophidian reproductive physiologist. And the sad thing, fellas, that really concerns me, and I'm a big proponent of agriculture. I've been on some ag committees here in the state of Florida for 26 years, representing the reptile industry on a state level. So we meet with the cattlemen and the livestock and the slaughterhouse and the equine and the vets and the poultry and, every facet of agriculture pertaining to animal production. And it's amazing how all industries are really, really struggling right now. And I just wonder, guys like you as a hobbyist and as passionate possessors and everything else, are y'all going to be able to survive? And can we survive as a real industry? Are people going to want snakes 100 years from now? And I think the answer is yes, in some way, some form or fashion. But they're not going to be able to go get what you and I could get 20 years ago. I think about the stuff that I did back in the 60s. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, when I went in the military in 69, there was no U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service of any sizable recognition. There was no CITES, and there was no Endangered Species Act. And down here in Florida, it was the Game and Freshwater Fish Commission. It wasn't, it was radically different. And I come back from Vietnam, and it's like, what the hell happened? The world went to hell in a speedboat. So it is what it is. And fast forward 50 plus years, here we are in 2025. You know, where's it all going, guys? And I'm glad to see that people are breeding chondros. I'm glad that there's farms over in Indo. You know, Cameron did some stuff years ago. A couple of Russians, I can't remember their names, did some farms. Michael Cole's got some farms. Michael's doing real good, and he's working with not just chondros, but, you know, all the monitors and lizards. And
Right.
he's got a huge, and he's the best guy out there in terms of, you know, when it comes to importing and exporting. But these people have a renewable, viable resource that needs to be propagated, you know, and it's sustainable. And that's the whole key thing. Soccer moms don't want wildlife. They want captive bred and born, you know, corn snakes or ball pythons or boas or crested geckos or frogs or turtles. Soccer moms want to know where this stuff comes from. And, you know, these corporate idiots out here, because I look at things on a whole different level, we're not going to have a pet industry. We're not going to have a need for a zoo, you know, if people can't have animals. That human bond thing is so important. But
Yeah.
look at what happened during COVID. Oh my God.
Spiked.
So many people couldn't have a furry animal because they were allergic to it. So, you know, it's just, I look at this whole thing, fellas, and I just, you know, scratch my head. Are we a one and done generation, Bill Stiegel? Or are your grandkids going to be able to do what Grandpa did?
Yeah.
I hope so. And you would have more insight into that than the rest of us, because you've seen so much. I don't know if progression is the right word. You've seen so much change. I'm optimistic. You know, I think reptiles in the last, like ball pythons in particular, have become much more mainstream than they were 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, I wasn't selling ball pythons to soccer moms and their 12-year-old daughters. You know,
Yeah.
and now every time I've been to show, you know, I am doing that. So I'm hopeful.
Not to mention too that we've had so many people on here, myself being one of them, that, you know, when I was a young kid, I saw a snake at a pet shop, and then that led to, you know, seeing them in books, and then, you know, it was like a switch went off in my head. And so many people that we have on the show have that same have the same kind of story, you know, that they've been obsessed ever since they were young kids. And I don't know what it was about me. You know, it wasn't like my parents weren't into it. It was just something that was in, you know, within.
Marshall, I think what it was for me when I remember being 6 years old, looking at the zoo book in the library, I just thought I would never probably see something like this ever in my entire life. You know, I always imagine whatever I'm looking at in a magazine, like, God, what would that like to be like in real life? And then I feel like a lot of people never think they'd ever see or get to hold a chondro as close as they can now in today's day. You know what I mean? You do go to a lot of shows and you see people who still vend chondros at their table. Not a lot, but they're there, and people are just amazed. And people don't forget that experience, that it doesn't leave you, especially if you're really about this reptile world. Once you get that first experience seeing something you never thought you'd see, it changes everything for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that's not going to change going forward. You know, the same thing that brought me into it. Somebody down the line will have the same or similar experience, I would hope.
You know, one of the things that I will encourage you fellas, because you all are blessed beyond your wildest imagination if you just stop to think about how well you're blessed. And one of the things that Trooper taught me, Trooper's one of the most loving, kind, compassionate, rough, gruff people that I've ever met. I mean, you know, he's tough. And I would watch Trooper. Trooper had the ability, Bill, to, you know, he would look at somebody. And this is when chondros were $7.50 a piece, and, you know, there were no discounts. And if you're lucky, I might sell you a second one. I mean, the demand was through the friggin' roof. But every once in a while, at least once or twice a year, we'd be at a show, we'd be someplace, and Trooper would meet somebody, or he would encounter somebody, and he would just give them a chondro. He knew what person to sew into, and he would give them a baby chondro or something that was well established. And I just look at him and said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I don't know. I got a feeling about this person. I just, you know, I feel it on my heart to just give this guy a snake." And I can't tell you how many times that just came back 100-fold. And I learned a lot from Trooper. Sometimes you make a sale by not selling. Sometimes you make a sale by giving it away. And sometimes you make a sale just doing whatever it is that you have to do to bless that person. And, you know, that is that's probably the one thing I miss the most about shows is, talking to people and working with folks. And God, Trooper and I had so much fun back in the day because, we had worked so hard, and then all of a sudden the whole, Wayne started doing shows in 1990, and it just exponentially exploded. And it seemed like everybody and his brother is either raising ball pythons or being a show promoter. And my God, it's off the hook, It's
Eugene,
crazy.
Eugene, are you vending any shows now?
No, the last show that I went to of any significance was Wayne's show in 2010, and Dave DeWitt, one of the young fellows that he's like a son to me. In fact, he helped me out so much in the passing of Cindy last year. He stepped up to the plate incredibly, and he's been in my life since he was 13. He started working for me when he was 13. He was a pretty much grown ass man when he was 13, and
Like Kush.
yeah, and he really, 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 really stepped up. Dave and I did Wayne's show, and Cindy didn't go with me or nothing like that. And I'm trying to think, who's the guy out there in Washington State that's written a lot of books about different Borrelia? Who?
Nick Mutton.
Nick Mutton. Love Nick. I haven't talked to him in years and years, but anyways, Mark Spataro had Nick Mutton and was showing him around. And back then we had produced so many, diamond carpet crosses and chondro carpet crosses and all this Borrelia stuff, and we just went crazy. And I had all this eye candy sitting out there in these fancy little jars, with the plants and colored rocks and the whole 9 yards and everything. And Nick was just going crazy. He was just crucifying me and everything else like that. And I just looked at him and smiled, and I said, if it's meant to live, it'll live, and if it's meant to die, it'll die. So
Eugene,
God, Nick.
Eugene, it's no mistake. It's no mistake that I'm broadcasting with a Carpondro behind me.
All right, okay.
Yeah, that's a 50% Carpondro behind me. And a lot of people don't know. You're the first person to ever produce Jag Pondros?
I don't think so. I think somebody else did. I don't know who. And if I did, I don't remember, so it's probably just as well.
It's the first time I ever saw one was one of yours.
I don't know who did those first, and I'm just there's been so many good people, Bill, that have come and gone, and we're doing all kind of crazy stuff. And I had so much fun, experimenting to see if it'll live and if it won't live, and God, it was a blast. It really was. I know we had some diamond pythons that we did some stuff, or Trooper did something with diamond pythons, to the best of my recollection, and I can't remember too much about that. I mean, I still have data card. I have data cards and data information going all the way back to the 70s. In fact, the first 8 ball pythons that I ever bought in 1977 from Philippe de Beaujolais. Went down to Philippe's house in Lauderdale. I was visiting a buddy of mine, and we were going down to see Bill Haas. Went by Philippe's on a Sunday morning, woke his butt up. He had long hair and a beard. He looked like Jesus back in those days. And he was importing animals, and I bought 4.4 ball pythons from Africa with the ticks and the mites, the whole 9 yards, $25 a piece, which was a stupid amount of money back in 77. And then I brought those home, cleaned them up, and then, we started, we bred in 1980. The only paper I ever did was, I did the work with Van Meerup, wrote it, but it was all about, breeding ball pythons. We had so much fun setting different simulations up in the lab to see what ball pythons would do and hatching them out and everything else like that. And that was my first encounter. And Bill Brandt one day reminded me, he says, you haven't missed a year breeding ball pythons. He says, what do you mean? He said, well, you started in 1980. And I said, yeah, you're right. So this is my 45th or 46th year of breeding ball pythons. Well, I don't breed them. I mean, they copulate themselves, but, watching them and putting them together. And, and I went, wow. And I got to thinking about it. I said, I had to do 40 years before I could come to year 41. And it goes back to that guy with the 27 slugs in his first clutch of chondros. That's the best thing that needed to happen to that young man, was for him to have that female slug out. And I never heard back from him again, but I'm assuming that he hung in there, because when he walked away from me, he was fired up. He didn't buy anything, but he was fired up. And that's all that mattered, And I said, you're on the right course. You're gonna crush it. You're gonna do great. And so how many times are you willing to get knocked down? How many times, are you willing to keep going forward? And there's nothing wrong MJ, with somebody saying, okay, I've had enough of this. Everybody has to quit at some time. Everybody's going to die at some time.
Yeah.
But when, and so it's up to you. I told somebody the other day, and I said, whatever is your law, whatever controls you, whatever is your law, becomes your God. And the guy just looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I said, just think about it. Whatever controls you, that is your law. You abide to those laws, and that becomes your God. That controls you, and everything else. And I said, are you a free man or are you a slave? That kind of stuff. And I like to screw with people's heads,
I'm a slave to the Chondro gods, bro. They fucking own the shit out of me. Holy cow. It's fucking, I'm like in hell and just like, they're just throwing me in the flames and I'm just hanging in there somehow. Won't give up though. I won't give up.
You just kept coming. Yeah, MJ, you had a similar start to the Chondro. I mean, we would have to say that your start with Chondros, especially producing them, was you went through, you paid your dues and look at you. You're still here going strong.
Yeah. Well, also I will say though, it's all about like, I have people like yourself, Bill, Marshall. I have a really good tight group of friends that like that keep me motivated first and foremost. Talking about everything, Tuesday nights really kind of open your eyes and you just got to expect shit to go down. It's going to happen no matter what. And no matter how good you are as far as battling things down, it's going to fucking happen. And you got to be ready for it. Like you said, Eugene, how many times do you want to go through it,
Yeah. And for me, it wasn't that I wasn't tired of doing it, but there were other things that I wanted to do. There were other business things that I wanted to try. And you can only do so much. And it's like I told Trooper, I said, I really feel good that enough people around the world get it and understand it. We've empowered a lot of people and the prices were coming down to where it just wasn't, from a business point of view, it wasn't worth doing. And I had other projects that I wanted to do. And so I had to let go of some things. And, when you let go of things, it really frees you up to do stuff. And if you had everything you wanted, what the hell would you do with it? You'd be frustrated. So I learned that less is more. And I think about, sometimes I'll look at data cards and they're filed away in these plastic boxes in one of the other buildings. I haven't thrown anything away. I don't know, when I die, somebody can they'll burn them or whatever. I don't know. There's so much data, whether it's on berms or chondros and all the venomous stuff, tons and tons of stuff and everything else. And so, I don't know. It's fun to look at and looking at names. The other thing that was cool is when Rico, quit his job up there at the aquarium and he went full time into the chondros, he came down here and I had the genealogy book. I had the Bible of genealogy that Trooper had initiated. And Trooper is the one that really got one of the girls up there at National Zoo that worked for the Navy Defense that helped him put all these genealogy charts together and figure things out. And I still have that book. It's a 4-inch notebook with old genealogies of names that'll blow your mind and stuff like that. And I remember Rico came down here and I said, you can't take it with you, but you can get a copy machine and make copies. So he came down here and copied about 300 or 400 sheets of paper and made his own copy of everything like that because he just needed it to patch in things. Because, somebody says, well, I got this from that and this from that. And there's a gap here, and it's just fun to watch people putz around with it. Now, I don't know where it is today, but I know Cameron, DePedlin is the one that started all this identifying where these animals came from. The animal might come from the top of a mountain in Montana, but you had to take it all the way down to Texas to ship it. So it became a Texas chondro when it really came from Montana. That's how it was over there in Indonesia. It ain't so much about where he found it or where it was collected. It's where did it get shipped out of? And that was the only way to remember, because the indigenous people, they didn't know where they got it. They said, 20 kilometers up a mountain over here, this ridge and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Eugene, people have said on the show that a lot of the things that are named locality-wise came from the airports or the surrounding areas of where the snake's leaving, but that's not where the snake was actually plucked from. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Cameron did the best that he could back in the day. And if you could ever get Cameron to talk about that, Cameron would go over there and he would spend months going from island to island. Sometimes he'd have to wait for a week for a boat to show up.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah, and you're roughing it, man. You're grubbing for food and making fires, and you're sleeping on the ground, and ain't no Motel 6 over there. I can tell you that right now. And you live with the indigenous people, and you learn how to be, an Indonesian per se. And Cameron is one of the Cameron had that. He was rough and he was tough, a lot tougher than what I wanted to do. But he loved it, and he was damn good at it. And he had a lot of friends, and he made a lot of friends in contacts and stuff. So, and he's one of a kind. You know, nobody will ever do what he did. I mean, it's just his life story is unique. But he was willing to leave the comfort of his couch and put his remote down and decided to go travel to some wretched place and see what was there. And, you know,
I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, I know you're spoiled rotten.
I am spoiled rotten. Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
There's still people that do that.
Yeah.
Mallory does that.
Who?
Dan Mallory.
Dan Mallory does it.
You know that
Never
name?
met him.
Demon Exotic.
Never met him.
Yeah.
But anyways, so tell me, fellas, since we're talking about green trees, I mean, what is the market? What's a baby green tree going for these days? Out of the egg.
It all depends. Out of the egg, I would say if it's a pure locality, non-designer, I would say on an average, you know, yellow neonates are about $1,000 to $1,500. You know, and they could go up depending on the lineage, but we're talking pure locality stuff, anywhere from like $1,000 to $2,000 for a pure locality. And then Bill and Marshall could speak on the designer stuff because that's more.
I'll let Bill speak.
Yeah, Bill could speak on the designer stuff.
Well, the designer stuff, you know, the market's, you know, upwards of $10,000 for a baby out of, you know, a red baby established that hasn't started to change yet, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 is probably the high end animals produced now. You know, you look at the same animal, it's 18 months old and it's changed and it looks badass from good genetics, you know, more than that. So, you know,
Conversely, after they change, and you know, the ones when they're babies, obviously you don't know which ones are going to be the good ones, right? So it's almost like you pay a premium for the chance to get that extreme animal, because once they change and they turn green, they're not 10,000 anymore.
It's like a lottery, right, Marshall? It's like a legit lottery in a sense.
That's right.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the first time. This was back when Eastern Airlines was flying in the mid '70s, and I was working nights at the post office, and so shipment came in from Trooper, ran out of the airport, picked it up, brought it home, put it out in the snake house, went down to the post office, which I called prison, you know, and did my 12 hours in jail, and got out of the post office about 4 a.m, ran home, opened up the shipment from Trooper, and, you know, he said, I'm sending you some nice stuff, and Trooper didn't say very much. You know, you had to really read a lot into what he didn't say. So I get home, and he had these there were these little plastic containers that it was like Twist Light or some kind of a mixed drink, and these little plastic things, and the little bags or the little cups would come in it, and it was, I forget the name of it, but they were perfect for green tree pilots. You put a piece of paper in there, a little piece of, you know, a paper towel, and put a green tree in it, and then put it inside of a sock, and, you know, and the animal would have something to ride on and everything like that. I mean, we got so artsy-fartsy with stuff. Anyway, so he sends me this package, and I'm out there in the snake house, and, you know, it's like 4 a.m, and I'd never seen these things, and I dump them out, and I go, oh, this is public, and there's, you know, I need to be polite here. But there were some expletive deletives that came out of me that reminded me of my time in Vietnam, where everything was, you know, the F word. And I was blown away. And I had never seen a maroon chondro. I had never seen any phases of maroon. And then he had some that were chocolate, almost black. And I picked up the phone and I called him up, and I'm going, hey man, you know, I'm just going off the hook, you know, and stuff like that. And then he goes, and I quit running my mouth, and he says, do you like them? And then it went like that. And then he hung up the phone. I said, yes. And then he hung up the phone. And, that was my first encounter, probably 78 or something like that.
Wow.
79 with maroons that he had produced. I didn't know they existed, dude. Wow. I didn't know. Nobody had ever told me about them. You know,
unreal.
The rest is history. And it was like, oh my goodness. And
so
much fun.
Eugene, I have to ask you, like, okay, back then, obviously, like, not much anything as far as what to do with a baby green tree python. So was it Trooper telling you what to do with them, husbandry wise? Did you already know what to do with them? How did those babies do with you? Did you ever get them to produce? Can we talk about all the beginning stages of your husbandry with chondros and finally getting your first clutch and all that good stuff?
Well, Trooper hatched them off before I did. And, you know, he was a good year ahead of me or so. And he had animals that were his own that he had at his house. And then he had animals that he had at the National Zoo that belonged to the National Zoo. And, you know, he would commingle some of his animals with the zoo animals, and Marcelini didn't really care. Van Meyerop had chondros, and then I started raising up chondros, and Van Meyerop wanted to measure the thermoregulatory capabilities and the metabolic rate of green tree pythons versus Meloris and this, that, and the other stuff. And, we did the ball pythons to see what do ball pythons do? Are they thermal producers, conductors? Do they shiver? Do they shake? Do they twitch? What do they do?
Wow.
And ball pythons are thermal. They go out and get the heat, bring it back to the eggs, and then they sit on the eggs and they go back out and get the heat. And,
oh, wow.
It's such a different type of environment. And I can tell you the best book that I ever read in my life was the Time Life book on global temperatures and photo periods and rainfalls. And I learned more from that book about that, information having to do with temperature, rainfall. And on the equator, you only have a 45-minute differentiation from the longest day to the shortest day. And, just looking at all of these things. And then there was a bunch of us guys, Midwestern Herp Society, or there was a chondro group, God, I forget the name of it. Mike, what was it? Mike Tristan or Mike Twig or something like that out in St. Louis. Who?
Mark Twig.
Mark Twig. Him and his wife.
Kristen.
What's her name?
Kristen.
Oh my God, what sweet people. Anyways, we would have big herp thing out there, and there would be close to 100 people. And we had talks, and we would raise money, and we'd fly people in. We flew in this one guy from Australia, and I forget his name, but he did his PhD on chondros on the Cape of York, and he spent the whole winter up there, the rainy season. Anyways, long story short, he was coming over here to do some talks to National Geographic. He'd gotten money from them, and he was doing a whole bunch of stuff. But the coolest thing I saw, and it blew my mind, and Rico's mind, and Troopers, and everybody else's mind, was that he had copious amounts of film footage of adult chondros eating moths.
Whoa.
Wow.
Big ass moths. Like these big lunar moths that are the size of this iPad.
Yeah.
And he said, this camera is this many meters from this tree, and this chondro is in this tree. In other words, these damn things are almost like a bushmaster. They just hung around like, I know something's going to fly around. I'm going to sit here until I eat
it.
You know? And I mean, you think gaboons are fast. These green trees, snatching moths out of the air. And there's no light. The moths are just flying around. We're talking twilight, that kind of stuff. And they're picking up on this movement. And it was insane. Anyways, long story short, so everybody and his brother goes home. They get moths, butterflies. We're grinding up wings.
I'm already thinking in my head. I'm about to go freeze some moths right now.
No, you take the Excelsior dust off of their wings and you coat it, with a pinky and the whole 9 yards.
My God, that's wild.
You stand on one leg and you play Led Zeppelin in reverse and you whistle. The damn things will eat. I mean, we had so many regimes in trying to get green trees to eat. But the guy, I mean, he just said it as nonchalantly as could be, and everybody went, I would not have believed this had I not seen it with my own eyes. And it was impressive as hell. It really was. But what was amazing was the temperature as to how cold it got during the monsoon season there on the York Peninsula of York and stuff like that. And just what these animals go through. And he would find dead chondros. They just didn't get enough food or they died and stuff like that. And I mean, he spent like a year and a half studying these damn things. And he got out there and he became one with the green tree python. And so, you have to elevate yourself to the level of the psychology of the subject matter. Get out of your humanism. Quit being a human.
Yeah.
Just be the spirit that God created you to be. I tell people I'm a spirit being having a human body or human being experience. And what's tangible in me is not really tied to the five senses. It's something beyond the five senses. So I have a lot of fun messing with people like that, trying to get people to quit thinking so damn much. Just, quit thinking. Just think about where these animals come from and what they need and what they eat. And we learned too, the reason that baby chondros are different colors because they can camouflage because of their predators and having to do with the vision of the predators that, predate upon baby green trees and the foliage that's available for green trees and the jungles and the trees and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so you have all these genetic variances that have happened. And like I said, where the red came from, who knows? But man, I'll never forget that first night that I saw my first maroon, red, and chocolate green tree python. It was like, 3 flavors that I just totally just gutted me. And it was a euphoric feeling.
I get it for sure. I get it.
Were these animals that Trooper had produced or had imported or what?
No, we didn't import stuff. We made our own stuff. We had enough adults floating around. We kept up with the genealogy. I mean, once we had a couple of clutches, and Van Marp had some clutches, and I remember Van Marp got some bloodlines, or he got some wild caught chondros from Joe Fossey. Trying to think who else he may have gotten some. Van Marp had friends all over the world, and stuff. So Trooper had access to a lot of different stuff from other zoos. A lot of zoos had chondros, Marshall. They weren't doing nothing with them. They were just, something that filled up a cage. That's all. And so, all of a sudden you start kicking the can down the road, and between Trooper and Dr. Marcellini and Betta Demler and Roger and Mike Davenport and everything else like that. And then and the fact that I had a relationship with Van Meyer, who had a relationship with Marcellini, and then I got to become a vendor for the Smithsonian, which pissed off a lot of people, because here I am. I'm not AZA or none of that stuff. I'm just, I'm a flesh peddler, and I'm doing business, with the National Zoo. Well, guess what? Hank Molt did business with the National Zoo, and damn near everybody went to jail, along with people from Dallas and Miami Metro and a whole bunch of zoos. And, that's all the stuff from the 70s. So we produced our own, and then we kept up with the genetics just to see what would happen. And it just, Marshall, it grew so fast. You know what I'm saying? Exponentially.
You see that pitch? You see that pitch right there, Eugene?
Yes, sir.
That's from your spot.
I remember this table.
1995.
I remember this table. I went to, I flew, you probably don't remember this, Eugene, but when I think it was 98, 99, I had just started, buying chondros. I was living in Connecticut at the time, flew down to Gainesville, spent the weekend at your place. I remember walking into your room there, and I remember seeing this table full with way more boxes than what you're seeing in this picture right here, stacked with neonate chondro babies. Everyone had their card next to it, and that's like one of the things that's like, permanently etched in my mind.
Yeah, this gets me excited just looking at this.
That was in the North Snake Room. That was a big white layup table.
Yep.
It was 36 inches by 96 inches. I remember that layup table. All kind of things happened on that table, and man, I'm telling you, it was crazy. That's the old Will Hold plastic Party Plus shoe boxes, and I don't know if they make them anymore, but they were great. They were a little bit brittle, but they worked out good for green trees. And man, we had a ton of chondros and went through stuff. And God, I remember, what was it? I think it was 96 or something like that was the biggest year, or mid 90s, 94, 95, 96, something like that. That we had the biggest year ever on green trees. I think we had 11 or 12 different bloodlines. We had over 400 babies that actually hatched off. And, we had some huge clutches, little clutches. We had so many chondros, and I'm telling you, you start feeding 400 chondros, and them son of a bitches were everywhere. I mean, in little shoe boxes just like that. They were in the living room, they were in the office, they were in the North Snake Room, and man, I mean, it was crazy. I remember Trooper, he would fly down, and come down and hang out for a week. And some of them were his animals, some of them were the zoo's animals, but I had them down here, and we were breeding. And I'm telling you, breeding chondros is a lot of work. And it was fun to do the volume, to do the scale. I mean, I'm glad, I'm glad that those days have passed, fellas, but I'm glad that I did them. It's the same thing with the big snakes. I mean, my favorite things are cobras and vipers and big snakes, but they don't sell. And kids today, as much as I hate to say it, probably shouldn't have a lot of this stuff, because they're not being taught the discipline by their parents to respect these animals.
Yeah.
And, with venomous stuff, it's not a question of if you're going to get bit, it's when you're going to get bit. Yeah. For
sure. 100%.
I was lucky. Yeah. And I was lucky with that. And, I remember Bill Haas just telling me, he says, you're going to get bit. You're going to get bit. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm glad that I listened to his wisdom. So I decided I would produce the snakes instead of milking the snakes. And then I went crazy with the gaboons and the rhinos and hybridize them. We used to get like $2,500 a piece for baby 50/50s, and they were just crazy looking animals. And the 3/4 were actually better looking than that. But there was no competition. What's it worth? Well, if you don't have something that looks like that and you want something, then you got to pay. And so I'm excited that the chondro market has come back, because when we finally decided to to just let it go. I mean, babies, you could get more than $100, $125 from people in this country for captive bred and born chondros because there were so many
That
people
is
doing it.
fucking crazy to hear. That is
Oh,
nuts.
yeah. I let it.
Wow.
I remember one year, MJ, I told Trooper, I said, I'm not going to sell any babies. I'm going to sit on everything and raise them up to yearlings where they're sexed. You know what I'm saying? And then I'll sell them for $750. And then eventually it just, I just said, we got to let this go. It's just too much work. And people were just getting stupid, man. I mean, it's just, it was
What do you mean by that, Eugene? Like people were getting stupid. Can you explain that?
They wouldn't listen. They were doing all kind of things to kill them.
Yeah.
Chondros and stuff. I mean,
Well, that's still happening, unfortunately, just so you know.
It's still happening.
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, I was against popping them when they were born with that tail. I didn't like all the kink tails. And I would have people buy a baby chondro from me and then take it out right in front of me and then express, the penises or trying to express them out like that, and just tails too delicate, too light, and I just turned me off. But
Eugene, why do you think the market wasn't as strong back then? People just didn't know about the animals, or what?
No, the market was super strong. I mean, it got exponentially good because so many people were doing it. And it's like I told Trooper, I said, we've shared our way out of business, and then it had to fall away. Trooper did his Chondro Coalition with Eddie Estes and a bunch of other guys. Marshall, were you part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What years was that? Early 2000s?
Like it was like early to mid 2000s.
Yeah. So, and Trooper never asked me to be a part of that, and I didn't want to be a part of it. I had too much other stuff going on from a business point of view. And for me, everything was a business decision. I said, what can I do? What am I being responsible for producing? I think there's definitely a market for a larger scale operation of green tree pythons, but they need to be well established and set up. And they're, most people don't want to listen as to how to take care of them.
Well, I think also during that time too, there was the imports had started coming in, and
was Nido a problem then too, guys, or no? Was that not a thing yet?
I mean, it might have been a thing, but nobody knew about it.
Nido virus, Eugene?
It's been here forever, and it'll be here forever. It's everywhere. There's one guy that used to work for me, Steve Tillis, Dr. Steve Tillis.
Yes.
And he is probably the number one guy here especially in this state, on serpentoviruses and various other things. And he went from wildlife ecology to getting a PhD in veterinary medicine, but his field is, what is it, population and dynamics or something like that. And it's like a Muslim Jew becoming the Pope. In other words, to go from wildlife ecology to getting a PhD in veterinary science, but yet not being a vet. You know what I'm saying? And so it had to do with animal science. And I can tell you why he got the degree, because Elliot Jacobson, who's retired professor emeritus of wildlife zoonotic diseases, and Elliot's somebody that when he came here in '77, we became best of friends. And we were looking at some projects, and I told Steve, I said, God, we need somebody in the family that's got the right initials. I can't go changing my name to Senator Eugene Bessette or, Dr. Bessette. Everybody will call BS on me. Well, Steve, he's been graduated for a while, and he's just brilliant at connecting the dots, and he's a super, super intelligent guy. So we were going to do some articles on fecundity and the success of these animals and with the breeding, and then we had this situation, we still do. We've managed irritated cloaca syndrome, which is, where the ball pythons, hemipenes, or the anal plate looks like a cauliflowered ear on a boxer or something like that. And it's from too much sex, basically, is what it is. It's primarily in males. They can still get an erection, they can still breed, and they shoot viable sperm, but it just looks like hell.
Yeah.
So you want to try to have as clean a collection as possible. But it was real interesting, and I would talk about it. Nobody else would. Everybody else doing ball pythons had males that had ugly ass butts. They didn't want to talk about it, but I did. And so we did a lot of research on that, and Steve did some research, and we were going to do this article, about how well the females do. And then Elliot came along and said, you ought to write a paper. And we got this great pathologist, Dr. Osboff, coming down from Cornell, and you and him ought to hook up anyways. The rest is history. And, 5 years later, Steve got his PhD. But he published 6 papers, and it's mostly on, nidoviruses, serpentoviruses, and and he's got his own animals. He's done his own thing, and he's really, really smart and sharp. very articulate at dealing with these things. But the bottom line, I can remember years ago when paramyxovirus and all that stuff started rearing its ugly head, and Pete Call had a tough time, and the stargazing and the boas, and Pete spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with Elliot at the vet school trying to figure out things that were going on. And I told Elliot, I said, dude, I remember back in the 60s, I had a pet retic that I got, I think from Bill Thacker or something like that. And the damn thing stargaze, it would just kind of like pigtail, and it would just curl around and then fall over and crawl, and then
neurological. Yeah,
this stuff has been here forever. And but it was a retic. It was gorgeous. It was manageable. It was about 15, 16 foot long. It ate everything you fed it, and it was cool. But we didn't know. We didn't know any better. Now we do, and it's something that's innate. You breed around it, and you don't worry about it. I mean, viruses, diseases, bacteria, proteins, they're exponentially everywhere, and they're going to express themselves because it's life. So, and I remember, nobody wanted to be around Pete. We started doing the Mid-Atlantic show, and I said, I'll be next to Pete Call. I said, his animals are fine, and you breed around it. And, Pete made millions of dollars and did real good. And Bo is probably still expressive. If it happens, nobody talks about it and stuff like that. So the best thing to do is to share all of your frustrations and your problems, get it out in the open, because I promise you, if one of you has it, everybody else has got it. So
I feel better about it now. Eugene, I express my frustrations and all my failures a lot. Probably definitely more than these two fuckers. I'll tell you that much. But also I'll tell you what, Eugene, as much as, because you have a lot of people who ask you like, well, what do you think happened? What do you think happened? And after a while of answering so many of those questions, for instance, if I had an emerald tree boa who retained babies and ended up dying, and I shared that she had, and I cut her open. I made sure she had babies in her, and she did. And I had I answered questions for the next 2 weeks trying to explain to people like what I thought happened to this emerald tree boa that died with babies inside of her. You know what I mean?
It's probably the water out in California. That's about how logical that question is to be answered.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It died.
Yeah.
It's life.
Facts.
You're not God. Just shut up and enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay, Eugene, I got to ask you, what year was it when you decided to let go of the whole Chondro project? Like, what time of your career was that?
Marshall, answer that question.
I mean, I know it had to be, I'm guessing early to mid 2000s, something like that. Because I remember going to my first Daytona. I had purchased one Chondro before. I remember I went there with my dad. You and my dad hit it off. You may not remember him, but he's still doing good. But so I bought two snakes from you there, and then a year or two, maybe the next year, flew down to your place, bought a couple of more. So that would have been like 98, 99, something like that. So I know you still had them at least until that point.
Marshall, you're doing a good job with the chronology on that. I want to say it was probably by 2005 at the latest. Earlier. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. There was things that were going on at the zoo with Trooper, business wise, and also from his health. Wrestling around with all. He spent so much time playing with the Komodo dragons, and he really messed up his back.
Damn. Really?
Yeah, that's the reason why he's not in very good shape today. He got so screwed up at the zoo. But anyway, that's another story, another episode.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, we started and we let it go, and we just moved on. And I probably, there's things about it that I miss, and there's a lot of things that I don't miss. For me, knowing that the animals are well represented, I was excited when Rico took over, and then Marshall, were you at that ICAST thing, or Bill, were you at that ICAST thing we had? Was it 2013?
We both were. Yeah.
Was it 13 up in?
In Maryland.
Maryland, yeah.
Yeah, near Townsend, or was it in Townsend? I think it was in Townsend.
I don't remember exactly where it was, but yeah, I know. I had, at the time when I attended ICAST, I had one green tree python.
Wow, iCast was only one iCast, right? They only did it once. Was that like a one and done thing?
I thought was there just one or was there two?
There's just one.
Well, the one that I got invited to, they gave Trooper and Jim Murphy and Rico Walden and myself some Lifetime Achievement Award. And good old boy. Yeah.
Yep. Honor the four of you guys. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was.
Yeah. And Steve and I, Steve Tillis and I drove up together for that. Had a lot of fun. Rico was doing good. What was Rico's wife's name?
Darlene.
What's her story, real quick? She okay?
Yeah, she's. I talk to her on Facebook every now and then. She's doing all right.
Okay. So that was a lot of fun at that meeting, and saw a lot of people, and met some folks, and God. So you said that was in 2013. That's 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Shit flies.
Oh my fellas, let me tell you something. It goes by so stinking fast. I'll tell you this right now, MJ, and I told this to Chad the other day. Well, you watched my show, and I said I'm one of the most blessed men you'll ever meet, despite my losses and things that we're going through this year, and it's been surreal. Yeah. But I am truly blessed. I've been set apart, and my ass has been kicked this year, but it's not defeated. And I don't know what the good Lord's going to do moving forward, but I know better days are ahead. Yeah. How we're going to define that, I don't know. But I just, like I told Kevin Coffin, I'll say it to you guys. Sometimes you grow, sometimes you shrink, but don't ever quit.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing. And so I hope Kevin, if he's doing basins, that's great. Basins are a real challenge. God, there was a guy, Tony Nicolai. Does anybody remember Tony Nicolai?
Oh, yeah. He's back in the game.
Yeah, we had dinner with him at Daytona.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a piece of work. He's got a story. Man,
he's Tony on for sure.
He's tighter than a Dutch Jew. I'm telling you, man. and I don't care if he hears this, because he knows how I feel. I remember, I'll tell you a little the Nicolai story. So I needed a new counter in the North Snake Room, and I needed my cabinet guy was doing it, and it was a little over budget, and I needed an extra $1,200. And he was doing emeralds, and he built beautiful cages, had tremendous success, and man, he was such an artist. But he was doing the green trees, and he would come down here and he'd salivate, and you'd have to have a mop and bucket going behind him, and stuff. And I convinced him that he needed to buy this male chondro for $1,200, because that's what I needed was $1,200. and he said, and it was genetically just what he needed to complement all the other stuff that he bought from sending me years in the previous years. And I'm pumping him like a dry well out in Kansas, man. And I'm pumping him. And he breaks out his check, and he breaks out his ballpoint pen. He was an accountant for some Baptist hospital up there. And he's sitting there, and he's looking at me and says, I can't believe I'm writing this check for $1,200. I said, well, if it makes you feel better, make it $12,000, or something like that. And he was just, but that was at the time, he was just getting started, but he'd never written a check for much more than $900 or $1,000, but writing one for $1,200. I said, Tony, it's just money. Don't worry about it. It's just money. It doesn't mean anything. It's not real, So he wrote me the check, and I'd still bust his chops about that. And I'm sure he's got stories that he likes to bust on me, but I really miss Tony. I love him. I had a lot of fun with him. I was blown away with how clean. His animals were like NASA museums, like, well, this is going to go on the space shuttle, and on and on and on. And oh my God, if he had a smear on the plexiglass, he thought it was the end of the world, and it's like, God, there is no plexiglass cages in Brazil or Ecuador or Colombia,
Yeah.
Oh my God, but very colorful character. So kudos to you for having dinner with him. So he's doing well, MJ?
Yeah, he's doing good. Yeah, definitely doing well. It seemed like he was doing well. I think he's fresh off a divorce, right? Wasn't he? Like he looked all like Mr. Single. I think he was going on a date that night or something like that. He was living it up for what it seemed like.
We spent a lot of time with him.
Really?
That weekend in Daytona. Yeah, great guy. Very unique laugh.
Yep.
Is this you talking about Daytona 24 or Daytona 23?
Last year.
24.
Last year.
Yeah. I guess Wayne's going to do it again.
Yeah. From what I heard.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe you'll meet us there, Eugene.
Yeah, what's
I'd
up?
like to. I was wanting to. I went. I tried to go Friday, but I had to come back home. But my son needed me for some stuff, and it was really tough times. And but I did go for Saturday, and I didn't. I stayed for part of the auction, but I didn't spend the night. It was just inappropriate for me, for my son. I needed to be back home, for his request, and my kids have been, they're working through it, and they're dealing with the growing and the grieving and everything else, and it's hard. But yeah, I plan on being there this coming year, and maybe I'll be there Friday night and Saturday, and I don't know. I probably should stay Saturday night for the auction and just
How far are you from Daytona, where you live now?
Well, I live same place. I mean, outside of Gainesville, it's 125 miles.
Mm.
It's a good drive. It's not bad.
Is that north of Daytona? I can't really remember where Gainesville's at. Is that north of Daytona, or where's Gainesville?
Gainesville is kind of northwest, right in the middle of the state. We're 60 miles to the Gulf, 60 miles to the Atlantic as the crow flies. So if you look on the map, in other words, we're 2 hours north of Tampa, 2 hours north of Orlando, 2 hours northwest of Daytona, and then an hour and a half south of Jacksonville, 5 hours south of Atlanta, 5 hours north of Miami, and 5 hours east of Pensacola. So
and you've been there since the 70s, Eugene?
No, I've been here since '54.
Oh, wow. Shit, that's wild.
Why is it wild? It's just a number.
I know.
It's a big number, but it is. It's just a number.
Yeah, it's just a number. Somebody had to come here. Where were you in '54?
Shit, I wasn't even my dad's nutsack yet. My dad was born in '58. I was born 85.
Really? I didn't. Yeah. God, you're old for being so young.
Oh yeah, I know. I am old for sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Are your kids into the snake business, Eugene?
No, not at all. No, they'll have nothing to do with it. I mean, they have a phenomenal work ethic. My daughter especially. They saw how hard Cindy and I worked and all the sacrifices we made, and I have no regrets. But saying that, I probably would have done things differently, had I known what I knew. But I didn't know what I was doing trying to build this business because there was no blueprint. Yeah. And very, very volatile, trying to survive. And we went through a lot of tough times. There's not a lot of people that do it full time that are really, truly, professionals. And, all these people say, well, they have a reptile business. And I say, well, do you pay workman's comp, matching Social Security, unemployment, liability insurance? And they go, no. I said, you ain't got a business. You got a wish, and but that's okay. Because, I tell people, Bill, that I'm a backyard breeder. I just got a big ass backyard. Well, my whole yard is full of worms.
Eugene, it's a tough business when you have to raise a family, on the reptile business. I mean, it's a tough business. It has to be in your blood. It's a tough business.
You're absolutely right, Bill. And at the age of 7, I had a spiritual experience, and God called me to this business. And I was brought up Catholic, French Canadian, and my mother's father was a Supreme Court judge for the state of Rhode Island.
Wow.
I'm his oldest grandson, Judge Jalbert. And so my parents prayed over me and prophesied over me that said, I'm either going to be a priest or I'm going to be a lawyer. And I barely got out of high school. And I threw away a football scholarship when I was in high school because I just got fed up with academics and got fed up with athletics and fed up with everything. And so I figured, to show you how smart I was, I went to Vietnam instead. So, but anyways.
That was a choice, Eugene? That was a choice that you made?
That was a choice, yeah. And I just needed to get out of Gainesville. And to this day on my mother's grave, I know that she prayed me home safely because I should have been dead. And I was better off than most, and I was worse off than a lot. And I was able to see the difference in the middle, and very, very humbly. And I'll, it is what it is. So having said that, I knew this is what I was called to do, and I don't have time to get into the story tonight. But man, I grew up, Ross Allen's ex-wife and his two sons were just a block away over there on Bevan's Arms. Went to school with Archie Carr's kid at the parochial school. Offenberg, his kids, Offenberg at the University of Florida, had the Goen brothers that were the head of herpetology, wrote a lot of books. J.C. Dickinson, who built the Florida State Museum, which was world class at the time, grew up with his son on Bevan's Arms. Oh, and then in 1966, Dr. Van Myrop moves into Gainesville. Bill Thacker was going to school at the University of Florida back then. I met Bill when I was like 14 or 15. He was wheeling and dealing in animals. His dad had a smudge pot business, for the citrus industry. So he had contacts all over the world making smudge pots and ship them all over the world. Bill Thacker, he's still alive. He was wheeling and dealing. He was the DJ up here in Gainesville at the University of Florida. He was a cool dude. And he's been writing some books and, living in his memoirs. But the people that I grew up with around here, you know what I'm saying, were all herp related. And, one thing after that, but Van Myrop really, was my mentor, taught me how to think, and did so much stuff with him. And I could talk to you all night about that. Elliot Jacobson, he came down here in 77. There really was no vet school, but he was coming here for the vet school. The rest is history. He's been retired for 8, 9, 10 years, professor emeritus of wildlife zoonotic diseases. And Elliot is still publishing. He's still writing. I said, Elliot, nobody gives a crap. And he said, well, I did the work. I just need to publish it. And he said, maybe somebody will look at it one day. And I said, okay, whatever, but he's an academic. He's a researcher. He publishes.
Eugene, did you start OS, the business OS, after you got back from Vietnam?
No, I didn't start the business until I got divorced in 1979 to do the reptiles. That's from my first wife, who I'm still friends with and I care greatly about, and we still care about each other. We couldn't handle marriage. We were too young and dumb, and I was so screwed up when I came back from Vietnam. I was a mess. She was a mess. Yeah. And we could not handle marriage in the 70s, okay? I'll just leave it at that. The 60s were crazy. Vietnam was crazy. But got divorced in 79, filed for amended returns, back taxes, had started the business in 79. And originally it was Eugene Bessette's Ophiological Services. Came up with that mantra one night, sitting down at the post office, flogging mail at 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking sangria, snorting cocaine, and trying to get through the overtime. And I heard a voice. I said, God's my witness on this. I wasn't walking with God back then, but I knew there was a God. I just didn't know it. But anyways, so I got this name, Elbows, and I thought it was really bitching. And then my buddy, Tony Gilliard, who's a world-class taxidermist, said, get your name off your business. You'll regret it. And I said, why? Because he started his business, Tony's Taxidermy. He's a world-class taxidermist. And I mean, literally world-class. And everybody wanted to talk to Tony. So if he would have just made it like Southeast Taxidermy, nobody would even know who Tony Gilliard is, But everybody wanted to talk to Tony, especially these guys doing the big three in Africa, and going here to shoot these ducks and this turkey and this bird and going after these goats in Mexico. I mean, these world-class guys that like to hunt and have things mounted. So I took my name off of it and just made it OS, Ophiological Services. Yeah. And then I realized I'm in the customer service business. I'm in a people business. My ministry is to teach and show God's favorite pet. And I really think that God's favorite pet is a snake. Now that freaks out a lot of so-called Christians, but they need to go read the book. But God's favorite pet is a snake. And I know a lot of people have a problem with that, but they can kiss my grits.
Eugene, did you start OS with Chondros? Was that kind of the foundation of when you started, or were you working with other stuff at the time?
I think it was colubrids, no?
Berms.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Berms, and then I started getting a lot of venomous stuff. I had because I was doing business with zoos, and I had so much hot stuff. We probably had about 900 venomous animals. I mean, whatever extra inventories the zoos had, I got. Wow. I remember one time I bought 50 Russian blunt-nosed vipers from Joe Laszlo out there in San Antonio. He was a crazy Hungarian guy. Oh, man, you got to have these things. You need these things. I said, Joe, I don't need 50. Oh, you need 50. It's like, shit. All right. And then I would trade him something. And then Crutchfield was wheeling and dealing, and Louis Porras, and there was Western Zoological in the 70s would put out their price list, and back then it would get mailed, and then somebody came up with a fax machine, and the whole world went crazy with faxes and stuff like that. So I was big into venomous, and then doing the berms because of Van Myrop, and then the berms led to the balls, and the balls chondros, and then that sort of
Argentines,
stuff.
right? You had a bunch. I remember seeing a bunch of Argentines when I went to your place.
Yeah, that was out here. We did a lot of occidentalis, and I got some really great bloodlines from various people. And in fact, in Ben's book, I've got occidentalis with CITES paperwork before they became CITES 1 or Appendix 1. I mean, I had animals that were really to die for on the occidentalis. And I was really blessed, Marshall, with working with a lot of cool stuff. Same thing with the Dumerals. I got my Dumerals came from the National Zoo. They were offspring from wild caught on the SSP program. A lot of politics there. So, I mean, we were going through a lot of stuff, and then, we bought the land in 82, and then we started construction in 88. It took me a while to get things going and to save up money, and then we built Bubba's Big Snake House out here in the country, and then we've added on and added on and added on and done a lot of stuff, and it's just done a lot of growing. But learning how to say no, Marshall, is probably been the smartest, best thing that I've done, is letting go. I mean, Marshall, all things are permissible by the good Lord, but all things are not beneficial. And man, I'm telling you, and boas especially, boas were so frustrating. I believe so big in the boas. I saw what Pete did. I saw what Gus did, and other people were doing, and what Jeff was doing, and Ben Russo was doing, and other folks. And it's just the weather down here. It's just not conducive to a lot of boa breeding, and you got to have a lot of animals. They're not scalable. So they're triggered because they're live bearers. They're a whole lot different than egg layers. And, you can get into all of these different nuances of these animals and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just beginning to learn. I mean, I've learned that I don't know a whole lot. I've learned how much more I need to learn. And I also realized I'm not going to live long enough to learn all this stuff. Wow, there's a big, who's got these pictures?
Chris Rice. Chris Rice has known you since he was like, I think 12 years old, 13 years old. He's met you, I believe, at I forget, Orlando show. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but he has all these pictures, man. Chris loaded me up a bunch of old school pictures from you. Yes. And I guess
a pregnant occidentalis. Look at her, man. She's just like
ovulation, I guess, or something like that. I guess
she's already ovulated. Look at it. It's down there in her lower third of her body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's people that still have those cages that I made with the PVC doors and the contact paper.
Yeah, that was a PVC door that's right there. That's that in
that's quarter-inch gray PVC, and then I used a piece of pegboard as a jig, and we drilled everything out by hand. I mean, I had people just drilling like crazy. Bob Guerriere's got a lot of my 8-foot cages that he bought, the ones that I really put a lot of time into, and just got crazy building them. And then he's got a lot of occidentalis, because years ago, back in the early 90s, he cherry-picked the hell out of stuff, and he had a really good eye. He's got occidentalis that are either red or pink. Yeah. And I don't know what kind of money he got. There's an old Van Ness tray. And newspaper. What this generation doesn't know what newspaper is. They hardly even know what toilet paper is. I'm waiting for AI to come up with AI toilet paper.
So, the power of social media, right? When I first started in this, Eugene, obviously I came in very broke. I was living a bad life, and the snakes were saving me, and I saw that people were using newspaper as substrate. So I was like, hey, that would save me money. The Smart and Final grocery store would give me free newspaper. So I was using newspaper. Then I had this lady from Sweden saying how like the dye in the newspaper is going to kill my animals. And so she started like sharing my posts, all her people saying, look at the animal cruelty here. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I as a new keeper, I thought, oh my God, I'm fucking poisoning my snake with newspaper. But yeah, anyways, I still use newspaper to this day.
And all the dyes are vegetable dyes. You can feed newspaper to a cow and it'll live. No, they did it at the University of Colorado. That 80% of their diet was recycled newspaper, and they made it into a mash, and they added chemicals and supplements and everything else, and it was the sponge that carried all the nutrients. It's not what you want to give a cow, but I remember reading some papers on that, and I thought, man, that's cool as hell. But and today we use nothing but cypress mulch, and I've had people tell me, well, cypress mulch isn't good, and this, that, and the other stuff, and I go, okay, how many snakes have you raised? How many years you've been doing this? And it's like, okay, well, I've been using cypress mulch for about 20 years, and I buy by the semi-load, and all the colubrids and all the boas and all the ball pythons. What is that? Is that an albino berm?
Looks like it.
a labyrinth.
Dude, this looks badass
Yeah.
right here, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, can you read the date on the newspaper?
No, I cannot, unfortunately. But I'm
Well,
sure
what's
Chris
wrong
Rice
with you?
can cover the date. Sorry.
No, that's
Weren't you
fine.
one of the first to produce? Was it the green worm morph?
No, it wasn't me. God, I don't know if that was Mark Bell or some other guys or Bob Clark or something. I don't remember. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who said that Eugene's Canadian? I'm an American. Who the hell put that up there?
'Cause I think they heard that you were raised Canadian, I think French Canadian Catholic, and so they assume that you are from Canada. So now they're excited. This is a fellow Canadian, really good guy, but now he thinks you are from Canada, and he's going to tell everybody that he knows that Eugene Bessette's a Canadian. I don't know what to do.
Well, can I say something?
Yeah, please do.
What do they call it? God, when you're from Quebec, a
French
circadian. They call you a circadian, I think, when you're up there. Circadian. Okay. My mother's and father's family all came down from the Quebec area, back in the 1800s into New England. Yeah. And my parents were from Rhode Island and stuff like that. And especially on my mother's side of the family, go back into Quebec. And, all I spoke was French when I moved to Florida. I was born in 51. We came down here in 54. My dad went to work at university. And I still can hear French. I have a good ear for it. And then having gone to a parochial school, those nuns just beat that Latin into us like it was a tortilla shell. And, you had to learn everything in Latin. The mass was in Latin, the prayer and everything was in Latin, So you kind of have that in your hard drive. But yeah, I am coon ass, so to speak. And I'm proud of it. My daughter's proud of it.
Nice.
My family has deep roots that go into Canada and stuff. And I did a homicide case up in Canada 8 years ago in 2016, and 2 boys had gotten killed by an African rock python that fell through the roof.
Oh, I heard about that story.
I remember it.
Wow, I remember that.
Yeah, that's in Campbellton, New Brunswick. What's the guy's name? It was November of 16. It originally happened. They didn't find him guilty, and then some prosecutor wanted to take him to court, and he was looking at 25 to life. Bottom line is, I was his only expert witness, and when we got done, I convinced the jury that it was just an accident. There was just no way that, and the government had screwed up a lot of stuff, which was to our advantage. But I remember I spent 2 or 3 days up there in Campbellton, New Brunswick, and had to fly into Montreal and go to Bathurst, and then take a 2-hour taxi cab. And I mean, there ain't nobody up there in that neck of the world, man. I'm telling you, it's out there.
Did they pay for you to go up there? Or you just did that out of spite to help the guy? What was the whole? Did they call for you to go up there with your expertise, or I'm just wondering how you got connected with that.
Well, Jean-Claude Savoie started volunteering for me when he was 16. He would drive down from Canada and come down here and stay for a week or two, and he would work. And then he grew up, and it's a long story. And his son you can read it in the paper, you can pull it up, but it was his girlfriend's 2 sons and his son were having a sleepover in the apartment, and the pet store was downstairs, and this African rock that he took because the government gave it to him was a confiscated animal, and I mean, the case was the most bizarre thing. And I had done a homicide case down here in Florida for an accidental death per se with an albino berm back in 2000. God, when did that go down? 2000. I can't remember, either 2002 or 2009. A little girl, Cheyenne O'Hare, she got strangled by an albino berm. It was a horrific case. That drug out for 2 years, and I was the expert witness for the state on big snakes and dealing with all the laws and rules with FWC because I've been involved in that rulemaking process. But anyways, that case in Canada, we went to trial the day that Trump won the election. That's how I remember that, because those Canadians were convinced that Trump was not going to win, and I said, you don't understand. You just do not understand.
Hey, careful, Eugene. We don't want to lose Marshall, okay? So be careful.
Why? What happened to Marshall?
Nothing.
Oh, I know he's out there. He's so far to the left, he fell off the page.
That's not true.
Marshall hopes Trump gets strangulated by a giant berm.
Maybe.
That's he won't deny that. Anyways,
let us pray, brothers.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
I wanted to ask you, Eugene. You work with so many species. What was the species that challenged you the most?
I wouldn't say there was any one particular species that challenged me the most. I think what frustrated me the most, Bill, and that's a really good question. I appreciate it. It was I would be so caught up, two things: finances and time, and I would not be able to give the time to some of the species, and it really had to do more with venomous species than anything else. I remember a lot of the Mexican moccasins, especially a lot of the Spitalaps lubricus from South Africa, wanting to do things and wanting to breed more stuff with venomous. And I got, when I was going crazy on the gaboon vipers were like a cross between a berm and a ball python. And I had so much fun. In fact, when we were really cranking them out, we had like 240 something female gaboons that we were either breeding gaboon to gaboon or rhino to gaboon or gaboon rhino cross back to, we were just playing life out there, and the eye candy and the crazy things that we produced. And Van Horn down there at Reptile World Serpentarium got so excited when he saw these different proteins, when he would come up and extract venom, and we would look at it and he would assay it. And he didn't have the money to have somebody go in there and identify, but he said, these have to be new proteins, the way that they're sticking out. And I don't understand toxicology. Bill, you're more a man of medicine. You understand all that vernacular and everything else. But if George Van Horn was getting fired up, then I got fired up. And so we didn't have the money and the time to assay it, to explore it, to go look at it, things like that. So it really wasn't one species, Bill, but it was not being able to do the due diligence to some of the species that I so wanted to investigate, that I was so curious. And then the reason I picked the berms is because Van Meyer, I came back from Vietnam. I said, Doc, what are we doing? He said, we're raising up Burmese pythons. I said, why? He said, I need the hearts for comparative physiological studies dealing with abnormalities in children and stuff like that. I said, oh my God. And the rest is history. We're off to the races. And in the process of running that race, and getting in the saddle, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he says, he had such a heavy Dutch accent, and I went to the National Zoo. I flew back from Russia, blah, 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 telling me all these stories, and then I met this guy, and you need to meet him, Trooper Walsh, and the rest is history. And it was just, phenomenal. I said, okay, yeah, right, great. And it was like brother from another mother, and we became, the best of friends. And I probably the same thing about snakes, not so much species, but this whole, thing about time, Bill. Like I need to spend more time with Trooper, but I don't, and I need to spend more time with other people, and I don't. Oh, and my kids. Oh, and I don't. And so the busyness of life, Bill. Yeah. That's why I'm not envious, but I'm happy for you that you retired, that you got off the boat, that sort of stuff. And I started this conversation with that in the very beginning, as a precursor to people. Be careful what you wish for. What will you do with it?
Yeah, you just spread really thin.
Yeah, like a condom over an elephant, and it just it was crazy. So that would be the thing. It's not really one species, Bill. It was managing the opportunity that life would present a flavor to me, and especially because I had such a great relationship with all the zoos, and I had done so much business in the '60s with Tarpon Springs Zoo down there with Mike Salikas and Trudy Penman and all of those people. And there was so much stuff coming up from Africa, and that's where I met Skip Ferguson. I mean, I was 13, he was 16. He was buying my beer when I was 13. And we would go down there. My dad would give me 10 cents a week allowance. And I'd say, okay, well, great. And I'd go out here and I'd catch all this stuff around Alachua County. And then we'd take it down to Tarpon Springs Zoo. And if I had $100 worth of animals, I could either get $100 cash or $150 credit. Well, I'd take the credit and I'd take all these animals from them, bring them back up here. I was 13 when I started, hustling, and I was selling animals to college students and my buddies and everybody else and stuff like that. And so the whole thing just grew and grew. And the next thing you know, you start meeting people at the university. Who the hell's this kid? Who the hell's this kid? Where'd you get this? Where'd you get that? Can you get this? Can you get that? And it just relation building in ways that I never ever imagined. So
Florida was like the Wild West back then, wasn't it? Because so much stuff was coming in, via borders and.
Yeah, one of the coolest things Bill ever did, Tarpon Springs Zoo. Skip would go down to the port down there in South Tampa, in Deepwater, and there would be a shipment coming in from Colombia, from Leticia, and it would fill up a semi-load. And there's all these wooden boxes, and they made no sense. The shape of the box made no sense as to what was in it. The only thing, though, there would be a skull and crossbones if it was something venomous. Now, that could be Bufo marinus, or it could be some sort of vipers or something like that. I mean, they would pack flamingos in there. They would pack monkeys in there, and on and on. I mean, just so much crap. Back that semi into this big warehouse, and then you start taking the boxes out, and then you start opening the boxes. There's no manifest. There's no packing slip. There's just stuff in box.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh, what the hell is this Orinoco croc doing in here? Oh, my God, she's huge, you know? No, I'm serious. And so there was all of that crap down there like that. Or you had electric eels. And, I mean, you just on and on and on. And it was Christmas. And I thought, well, this is how it is for every kid that's 13 years old. Not.
Crazy.
Not.
Absolutely crazy.
So that's what I said earlier. You know, Marshall, there's people out there that are never going to be able to do what you've done, and you're never going to be able to do what I've done. But what difference does it make? Well, it's my responsibility to share with you guys. It's your responsibility to share with others.
Yeah.
You know, and to keep the ball rolling and stuff like that. And you know, it's exhausting for me because I'm sitting there trying to think of all the cool things, and when we hang up, I'll remember this or I'll remember that. But by and large, the coolest thing is the relationships. And, you know, you were talking earlier, you mentioned, Marshall, about flying down from Connecticut, and I always thought you were from Alabama.
I am. Yeah, no, I was living in Connecticut at the time.
Yeah, War Eagle fan. But anyways, Tom Harbin had a buddy.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Tom, man. What a guy. Good guy.
What a great friend. I remember he flew down here with a buddy of his to buy chondros.
Wow.
Went out to the airport and picked him up, brought him back over here to the farm. We went shopping, you know, and we went to lunch and came back, and he picked up his stuff and he stroked me a check, and away he went. And then I had some other crazy guys. God, I forget where I met these guys. I think I met them at some shows in Tampa or something like that, young guys. And I know they were drug dealers, man. I mean, the way that they were young and flipping the money and the women they had and on, and they were into snakes. And, you know, I was very, very careful. But one of the coolest things I saw was this old boy. Some guys would put the chondros in little, you know, nylon socks and put them on their person, you know, and carry them home and everything else like that. And this is before they started inspecting it, you know, inspecting you getting on the plane. But this one old boy, he had one of these big, I don't know, like he put Coke in. It looked like a huge thermos jug. Well, he had it made so that it had a fake bottom. He had a small little container part where he could have Coke and he could have a straw and he'd sip out of it. But then he had like 10 chondros packed in there. So he left out here, got on the plane. He had 10 chondros in his, you know, thermos jug that he was drinking Coke out of. He said, I don't trust Eastern Airlines to ship them. And I went, man, this is an ingenious guy. And that's probably the way they smuggled drugs and everything else. But I didn't care. The cash was green and it was good to go. You know, but man,
some things never change.
Yeah.
No.
Some of the first chondros I bought from you at the first Daytona I went to, I brought them home in my pockets of my cargo pants on the plane before they started.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, that's gangster, Marshall.
Pre-9/11.
I didn't know you had that in you.
That's pre-9/11.
Say that again, Eugene.
Marshall is a lot older than you. Look at his gray hair and his balding foreline. You know, he's starting to look like part orangutan there. You know, the way his hair is going back. Do your knuckles drag? Hey, Marshall, do your knuckles drag the ground? Let's look
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Stand up straight. Come on, Homo erectus.
He might be a hybrid.
Hey, dude's in good shape though, Eugene. The guy stays in shape at least.
Yeah, I saw he's drinking that Miller Lite.
Yeah, he keeps the calories under 100 per can. But Eugene, I got to ask you, you know, you know, with what you're doing now, like, well, no, first off, in early 2000, mid 2000s, you said that you went ahead and just, you know, let go of the green tree pythons. Was it enough for you with the other species that were taken off for you to understand, okay, there's no need for me to do chondros. I have the ball pythons taken off. I have the colubrids taken off, or I'm just curious, like, what it was that made you feel comfortable just letting go of the chondros.
Well, in the early 2000s, we were still doing berm, pedal to the metal, and we were doing a fair number of boas, and we had a few colubrids, but not many. And letting go of the chondros was good. We still did a lot of diamond carpet crosses and things of that nature, but we let go of the, you know, green trees were set up a whole lot differently than the way the diamond carpet crosses and the diamonds were set up. And it was an evolutionary process. You know, one begot the other, but one had to go first, you know, that sort of stuff. So it was just through attrition and natural selection, and it was driven by market share, you know, and what could you garnish and what could you do? And, you know, today it's the markets are crazy. I mean, you guys deal with niche markets. You guys deal with really exclusive stuff. You're very well insulated because your plan A protects your plan B. And like I told you earlier, my plan B is that plan A's got to work. And I have no problems with that. I just trust the good Lord, you know, moving forward with that. There are days that it gets tough. There's no two ways about it. But I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So it felt good. And, you know, Trooper needed to let go, and Trooper's hard to let go. And a lot of, I mean, as it is with every guy, you know, you have a certain amount of identity. And I don't want my identity to be snakes or green tree pythons or ball pythons or boas or gaboons. My identity is my walk with God, and then just loving on people and sharing the good news of stuff. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to die, bro. We're all going to kick the bucket. And I take a lot of peace knowing that I'm going to die, but I don't want to die for at least another 35 years. I want to get well into my hundreds. No, I'm going to be a functional centurion. I might have a cane and a drool cup, but I'll be functioning around.
I'll still be here.
Yeah, you might be. I don't know, MJ. You're a little batshit crazy.
A lot batshit crazy.
Eugene will outlive us all.
Yeah, for sure.
When are you going to leave California?
Oh man, when they start doing 24-hour taco shops in other states, that's when I'll leave.
24-hour what?
Taco shops. I'm obsessed with the Mexican food here. I was born around some of the best food that you could possibly eat, Eugene. I love that. I'm a food snob, and so I live in a good place for food.
Before I went to Vietnam, I spent time out at Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino.
Oh,
and that base has been closed. And being a white guy, being in the brown neighborhood, you know, you had to hybridize. And so I got real good at driving drunks home and stuff like that. But I know what you're saying, because there was a little, you know, Hispanic restaurant in El Centro, and you walked up to this wall of this old building, and there was a hole in the wall, and you would tell them what you want, and then it would come flying out of there, you know, and stuff like that. And I went there with a lot of Mexican guys that were in the Air Force with me and stuff like that. And I know what you mean about the food. And I have to admit, the food in the San Bernardino area, in Redlands, and a lot of those places, this was back in the 70s, was off the hook. And there was this thing called smog. We would watch the smog, like this orange carpet, roll in from the airport, you know, in LA, and come up and stop at the mountains. We'd go up to Big Bear up in the mountains in June. It'd be 2 foot of snow, you know. We were broke. We didn't have any money, so we'd go up there and watch all the bitches skiing in their bikinis, you know, and stuff like that. And
fuck yeah.
Man, we're making $38 a month, you know, we're living large. And then I go to Vietnam, and they're paying me $110 a month with combat pay, you know. It's like, wow, what are you going to do? Send me home, bust me? I really don't care. But wow, that was another time and everything else. So, but you should really consider getting out of Southern California.
I love it though. I know, but you know, the thing is, I also got my family too. My wife has her family, and her parents are like the best. Like her mom's like the best grandma to my son, and so it's hard. Yeah, I know.
Move
but
them all.
No, that's a scary thing. Like, okay, we move us, but now we have to move the fucking in-laws, and then my parents are gonna want to come, and then what are we gonna do? Get a compound and all live on the same compound? I don't know. It sounds scary, Eugene.
Cut the cord. Grow up.
MJ, you can't leave the weather either. You got the best weather. You got the best weather in the world.
I got the best weather, Eugene. I'm in San Diego. It's the best.
I've been to San Diego. I know it's beautiful. It never changes. It's too perfect.
It's perfect. I'm telling you.
It rains 4 days out of the year. Yeah,
that's the thing. When it rains, we're happy when we see rain, because we don't see a lot of rain here. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm very spoiled when it comes to weather, food, and then I have friends that will come here. Marshall, Bill come here. Like, so it's like, you know, I don't know. I also go travel too, though. I also do leave, so it's not like I never leave San Diego, Eugene. I make sure I get my ass in other places, and I do see the beauty in other parts of the states. But I don't know. For now, I got
to. No, listen. Follow your heart. Be at peace with your heart. That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
You know, when I left Gainesville in '69, I hated this town, and after traveling around the world and a lot of TDY and spending time in Nam and everything else, I realized that Gainesville area was the best screwed up town that I could ever want to live in. And, but I needed to get away to realize where my blessings were, where my provision was, and what I needed to do. And just even buying my property out here, I spent 2 years looking for land, and I did not want to live out in this part of the county. And that's a very long story, for another time. And so I just look at things, and I play back the tapes. And like I said earlier, the fact of the relationships with people, and the people that I'm meeting today. And I don't know, I'd love to see more people get into this business for the right reasons. The problem is, MJ, too many people get into it for the money. And
hasn't that been a hot topic, boys? About Eugene, how do you think about this, Eugene? Somebody getting into the high-end chondro game, and they're getting a loan in the bank to buy these babies without any experience breeding yet, but they're getting loans to buy some of these chondros, $10,000, $12,000 chondros.
What do you think dumbass people did with ball pythons? They mortgaged their house. They had $200,000 worth of ball pythons in their wife's closet.
I mean, and that's stupid too. But ball pythons, it's a set it and forget it snake now. Like it's so any dipshit can breed a ball python. Chondros. Go ahead.
Hey, any dipshit can breed a green tree python.
Oh, shit.
Now, does that piss you off that I said that?
A little bit. Not coming from you doesn't make me mad.
Eugene, you just crushed MJ. I want you to know. You just absolutely crushed him.
Hey, well, you better go take some B12 or something like that and start methylfolate because you got to get your brain to work better. God, man, what's wrong with you?
What are you looking at there, Eugene? What are those notes you're going through?
Bills. Junk mail. Double ARP. Throw that in the garbage. I mean, I'm just, I'm sitting here and I'm struggling with what's his face living in California. It's just frustrating. I thought by now he'd see the light. I thought he'd come to the promised land.
I think he's a Texan at heart. I really do.
Oh no,
I can't. Oh,
it's too flat in Texas. I can't. There's no mountains. I need mountains. I need something. I need to see a hill.
There's plenty of hills in Texas.
Yeah, not mountains. There's no mountains. There's no mountains in Texas.
Yeah, there are.
Where? Not in Bill's house, and I like Bill's house.
No, you got to go to West Texas. There's mountains.
I think I want to go to Alabama. I think I want to live next to Marshall. I like to be like.
I don't recommend it.
Alabama is one of the most liberally perverted states there ever was.
Okay, never mind. I'll go to Georgia. Is Georgia worse?
And then Florida's gone to hell in a speedback.
I can't do Florida. Hey, no offense, Eugene. Florida is nuts. I don't know how people live in Florida. It is fucking crazy. Dude, the humidity, the weather. Oh my gosh, there's no way. And I'm talking South Florida, Eugene, like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, that demographic of Florida. I've never sweat so much in my entire life, Eugene. I don't know how you do it.
It's good. It's easy. It's good for you. I mean, Marshall will tell you it's hot up here in Gainesville. I mean, they call Gainesville the Arctic Circle compared to South Florida. We had 3 weeks of weather. It was in the low 20s. I mean, we didn't ship for 5 weeks because of the weather. Christmas and New Year's, and then we had 3 weeks of in the 20s.
Right.
It's just too damn cold.
This is the first week I've been able to ship since before Christmas. Yeah, same.
So you're using FedEx or UPS?
I'm using Work Market Shipping. Yeah, which is FedEx.
FedEx.
So I do have a question. Back when you guys were, on the forefront of producing chondros, and one of the things that's the most challenging, and you kind of touched on it earlier when you talked about trying to get 400 baby chondros established. What were some of the tricks that you guys used back then? Because now we've got chick down, we've got chicken gizzards, we've got gecko, we've got things that people have figured out that can work. What was the trick back then? Or how did you get talk us through what was it like getting 400 baby chondros established? What did that look like? Was it all you feeding them all pinkies? Was it just spending time with them? Was there tricks that you learned, techniques over the years?
Spending time.
There was no one thing. I think the one thing, and I told this to Trooper, I said, don't wait for them to shed. Soon as they're born, start offering them food. And I can't tell you how many chondros I would get to eat before they would have their first shed.
Interesting.
If you got them to eat before they shed, you never had to worry about them again. Now, it was only about 20-25% that might do that, but it was worth doing. And so you would find all these different peculiarities. Some of them had to shed. I remember one time, Marshall, this was back when I lived over on 9th Avenue. So this was back in the early 80s. And I remember I came back from the post office one night, and back then I had all this red acetate in the ceiling, so it would make the fluorescent lights look like like everything was red, like some lab, all this photo period crap that I was into, and just stupid stuff. But anyways, I had this one chondro, I'll never forget this. She went 102 days before she ate her first meal. And I tried everything, and Trooper tried, and Van Meyer tried. And I mean, daytime, nighttime, loud music, soft music, whistling. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, everything we could find, we ground up, whether it was minnows, whether, it was frogs or something like that. I mean, just worms, everything and anything. And I remember coming in, and I said, I'm just going to see how long it takes before she dies. And I came in one night from the post office, overtime, like 3, 4 in the morning. I go out there and I'm doing rounds. That's one thing I learned from the doc. You do rounds every night. You make sure that all your patients are healthy and well before you sign out and go home. And so I treated my animals that way. And I walked in the room, and she's in this gallon jar, with the pothos plants and the water and the little perch, and looking artsy fartsy, one of these little Trooper setups. And her tail was hanging down, and she was caudal-luring. And I went, oh my God. She was caudal-luring, and her head was off to the side about 1/4 of an inch. She was kind of like looking at her ass. Her tail was down there caudal-luring, like she's just being so sexy. Ran out to the rat house, got me a pinky mouse, came running back in there with some tongs. Hooba! And she became one of my biggest breeders. I was going to put her in the freezer. So this bitch is going to die.
Had you been assist feeding her along the way, or you just nothing?
Nothing.
Wow.
I would offer her food in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and tease her and do it with a red flashlight, do it in the daytime, just do it. She wasn't ready to eat. I've never had one go that long.
3 months.
That's crazy.
102 days. And she became one of our best breeders.
That's crazy.
But that's not the norm. So back to your original question, you just, when you have that many, and we never did that many again, it's like, no, never again. And it was one of those perfect storms where, you'll breed 40 snakes and you hope that 15 of them will go. Well, God, what happens when 36 of them go? And now some of them are going to slug out. Some of them are going to, they don't all lay eggs, man. I've had my fair share of slugs, and I didn't mind them slugging. I said, good, as long as she doesn't prolapse, pass those slugs, separate her, start feeding her, getting her ready for next year. And this is good. I was thankful to get whatever came out of it, whether it was feces or slugs or viable eggs. It's all part of the cycle. But never again would I, like I said, we didn't realize how much work it was going to be. And so all the numbers exponentially, the pendulum swung way to the right, and it just ding, 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 man, it was off the hook. And, Trooper said, you better shut up and get to work. And I said, yeah, I am. You need to fly down here and help me, and stuff like that.
Wow.
But there was no, Marshall, I'm trying to answer this as truthfully as possible. It was fun. It was exciting. I'm sitting in here in the office, which used to be a colubrid room, which became a chondro room. And I can remember having chondros sitting out there on the counters, and then I would just have a fan running, or I'd have the faucet running for white noise, and during the day, I'd have the lids off the boxes. So I'd have maybe 20 or 30 shoe boxes scattered around with the lids off, and then I'd just go around and, prod the chondros or pinch them with a pair of tongs or something like that. And then I would take ice water. And that's one thing I drove Trooper up a wall with. Back in the days when I was breeding emeralds, I'd leave the emeralds outside till they got into the low 50s and bring them indoors. And then I'd take a 2.5 gallon, sprayer, have ice water in it, or I'd put ice in it. And I would spray the shit out of the emeralds and the sanzinias and stuff. And I'd even spray the chondros. It's like, here, have some ice water. And I'd just hose them down with just cold ice water. And sometimes I do it with the babies, and they freak out like they got electrocuted, and stuff like that. It's like, wake up, damn it. Let's see. Yeah, it worked on some. It didn't work on all, but it worked on some.
Dude, that's epic.
Ice water spray. I love it. We've had a lot of people on, but that's the first time I've heard that.
That's a first, man. That's a Eugene tip right there. Ice water.
Love it.
But I'm saying it was, and it worked. And and I'll give Trooper credit for that because what was it? He up there at the zoo. Oh, they had a water line, and Trooper was big into water. Like he had a hose that was like a fire hose, and stuff like that. And he would love to blast all the Brazilian rainbow boas and the big snakes, and he says you got to pellet them with water, cold water, when it rains.
Holy water.
And he was absolutely right. I mean, just freak them out, man. Freak them out. They're too much like a little corgi puppy. They just sit there,
Yeah. Shock the system.
Yeah, bitch slap them. Bitch slap them. You want to live, you want to die, Come on.
You make the choice, motherfucker.
Yeah. But fellas, there is no wrong way. There's just some ways that work better. But you get tired, you get desperate. I never did use hot water, but I always thought cold water. Hot water, there's no hot water in the wild, and I think that would really freak them out. And I don't know what that would do. But cold water, yeah, there's cold water because of the rainy seasons. You know what I'm saying? The rainy seasons in the mountains, whether you're in the Cape of York or you're in some of the islands in Indonesia, you get up there, altitude where the Bolins are 5,000 to 6,000 feet.
Yep, 40s.
It's cold. It's cold.
Yeah, it's in the
really,
mid 40s.
Really cold. So I mean, what the heck? Just give it a shot. There is no whatever works.
Now let me ask you this, Eugene. Did you guys back in the day experience a lot of prolapses? Did you see any of the chondros prolapsing on you guys?
Yeah, I had one female one night. When I was getting ready to go to bed, it was a little after 1 o'clock, and I said, "Oh my God!" And I had a nest box hanging there. There's the old cage of Van Meyer I made, and I had about 10 inches of sphagnum moss on the bottom in case she decided not to go in her box. And sure enough, she crawled out of her box. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at her and go, no. And all of a sudden, whoop, here comes an egg. And she's just started dropping eggs. She dropped, I think, 36, 38 eggs. Both oviducts prolapsed. I spent 4 or 5 hours, and I sat there and I took both my fingers like this and I shoved her oviducts back in. And then I had Cindy get me, was just pouring sugar on it to get all the swelling down. And then, using dextrose water 50-50 to wash off the sugar crystals. God, I must have gone through, about 1.5 pound, 2 pound bag of sugar, because the walls of those oviducts were like so thin, and I had to, they were so stressed. I got them back in and whatnot, and I remember I capped it off with some Preparation H as a plug to put back in there. And I mean, I'm sweating profusely. I mean, you definitely would have died, MJ, if you'd have been here. And I was just, sweat running off of me. And I sat there, and she's still wrapped around the prop, and she let me do whatever. And I finally got it all back in close to sunrise, and I had my thumb over her cloaca, and I just sat there and I just held it until all of a sudden she just started to slowly move her body and tail, and she realized she's done. And then she just pulled her tail back up into her coils and draped her tail over her body. And I just prayed, and I passed out, took a shower, went to bed after I set the eggs. And I think a lot of them hatched, but that was the most extreme case. So I caught her. I caught all the eggs. I watched her prolapse. I couldn't do anything. I just sat there and I said, no way. I can't believe you're going to prolapse. One oviduct, not too bad. Then here come the other oviduct. And I went, damn. So I got so humbled. And it was one of the greatest lessons. And you just had to be there. And it's like, I thank God every day for things of that nature. So when it's not going your way, it's supposed to be that way, because what would you learn if every egg hatched? Not a damn thing.
Right.
What would you learn if every delivery was flawless and perfect? Nothing.
Yeah.
So I was thankful for the eggs that hatched, and I was thankful for the ones that didn't hatch, because it's the circle of life. It's the whole completion. And that chondro don't know whether it's worth $10, $1,000, or $50. But that chondro represents to me the uniqueness of this privilege of doing this industry and this walk, is that you get to see life. And I still get excited seeing a baby Okatee corn snake hatch. It doesn't know what it's worth, but it's worth a lot to me because it's an Okatee. And I know the guys that caught the Okatees and where they came from. And, my buddy Benji caught those animals and stuff. And I mean, I just all of a sudden start tripping back to Eddie Leach and all these guys. And, these guys are all in their 80s and 90s. And these guys that were old, they were college students when I was a kid. And, and I go, wow, it's an Okatee corn. How cool is this? So I still get excited, with life. Somebody asked me one time, and I got to give Mike Van Noss the credit for this, and I had to agree with him. Somebody said, Mike, what's your favorite snake? And he said, whatever I can sell for the most. And I thought it was a little crass at the time, but as time has gone by, what's my favorite snake? Whatever snake I can sell for the most, because it's just the nature of business. I want to pay my employees more. I want to make the business better. I want to buy better equipment. I want to make it better for the animals, better for the employees, and better for the end consumer. It's all about how may I serve, how may I serve, how may I serve. What can I do to help MJ move from San Diego, to San What can I do to help Marshall read the other side of the coin? Probably nothing.
No shit.
Bill's pretty perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'll agree. Now, you know what? You have hope. Listen, you have better.
Eugene, can you call my wife? Eugene, I'm going to give you my wife's cell number. Would you give her a call for me?
Yeah, just send me that check.
Yeah. Hey, wait. When's the last time Bill wrote a check to another snake breeder? I don't think that's been. Fuck, who knows? Bill's too busy getting the checks. I don't think he writes checks to anybody.
He's not supposed to.
Alex Warren, maybe.
No, Alex doesn't take money. He just takes baby chondros.
Oh, there you go. Just as good as money.
So, are you guys selling large quantities of chondros, or is it trickling out to people?
Bill.
No, I mean, not on your level at all. No.
Bill, spill some of the numbers you had, though. Tell them how many clutches you had 2 years ago, then last year. Why don't you? Because you could speak the most out of all that right now.
Well, I mean, listen, I think, compared to a lot of the people that we've had on, I've had really, moderate production. The most animals I've ever established in a year has been 60. That was 2 years ago. So, compared to what Eugene and even, other people like Trooper and Maxwell, a fraction of their numbers.
Pico.
Yeah, but listen to me. That was the anomaly. That was my outlier, having close to 400 and something babies. I forget the exact number. I just know it was a stupid amount. I knew one thing: we ain't doing this shit again. And we made sure of that.
Listen, I mean, I might be selfish, but I'm glad that the days, at least for now, are gone of people producing 300-400 chondros in a year.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. Bill, it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of discipline. And, the thing I'm seeing today with young people that I interview for employment, and some of them are educated, some of them aren't, but they're not disciplined, and they haven't been taught right, and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm not belittling this generation, but what they need to learn is different than what you and I needed to learn. And in some ways, that's really, really sad. I want to see it grow. I just want to see people do this legitimately as a business and to be recognized, as a business. I mean, we're bona fide ag. We've gotten our ag classification here, and, we're still suing the state. We had our oral argument on January the 14th. Our attorneys from Holland and Knight did a great job making their presentation of what the argument was. And the argument that we spent $1.4 million here in Florida from private funds, and the mothership has given us some serious money too, as well. And is the jurisdiction. I don't sell wildlife, Bill. I sell captive bred and born animals. I am a snake farmer.
Yeah.
And these animals are domesticated, whether they're gaboon vipers or gorillas or whatever it is. They can be treated accordingly because of their potential threat to society. I mean, a gorilla can be captive bred and born animal. It's a domesticated gorilla, but it needs to be under, the auspices of a regulatory agency that understands the potential harm to the environment and to the public sector. But there's a lot of animals, what the public wants is the corn snakes, the frogs, the turtles, the lizards, all that stuff right there is domesticated. It's cultured. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how long do you think an albino berm? Do you think an albino berm would ever get to be an adult in the wild? Hell no.
I mean, be killed by them.
Just no way. So all of that is tucked away, and the good Lord is hidden for us. And I'm really glad that ball pythons, not berms, have 30,000 flavors. I mean, there's enough crazy flavors now in berms, and I'm glad that I don't do berms now because it's too much work. Can't get rabbits. People don't raise rabbits. I mean, I used to buy rabbits, hundreds of rabbits at a time. And then when Mark Bell moved to Florida, my God, he came down here with 300 females. And I was buying rabbits, trying to help him out from all over hell and high water. I mean, it's a lot of rabbits to feed, 500-600 berms. But that's what we did. And it was cool and the market was great, but it was NFL, not for long.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of resources to raise that number of rabbits now in this day and time. That's a lot of money. That costs a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, and I would not be in business if I wasn't raising rodents. I started out as a kid raising mice, and that's how I blackmailed my parents and let me keep snakes. And we just it was crazy, and so people don't want to work. And I mean, I could make somebody rich if they would treat me right producing rats, but nobody wants to work that hard. Like I said, I go 5,000 to 6,000 rats every week, and I buy thousands of mice every week, and I buy a crap ton of mice. I mean, I've got 10 freezers full, and I don't like walk-ins because they're just a pain in the butt. I like the chest type freezers.
Well, and now you can just import the rodents from China.
You can if you want. Some people. No, there's nothing wrong with the mice or the rats from China. There was a time there we had to buy some. But my goal is to be able to say, Bill, if you buy a snake for me, that snake was conceived and born here at Ophiological Services. Oh, by the way, all the food that it ate is conceived and born here at Ophiological Services. We haven't added any blood in our rodent colony in 26 years. Now, my mice, I don't raise enough mice. I'm still having to get mice from other people, and I probably will expand my mouse operation because other people are not being successful at consistently producing enough mice. So, I mean, it costs a lot of money to produce these animals. I mean, I got 4.5 people that work full time with the rodents. We go through a couple of tons of food every week. We buy shavings by the semi. Same thing with the cypress mulch, buy everything by the semi. Everything is, pallets of this or semi-loads of that. And we got a lot of work to keep 20 people busy. And it's a heck of a nut to crack every week on the payroll. I'm not complaining, but the market being what it is really, really tough. So, there's still a lot of purging, Bill, that has to take place in the ball python market. There's a lot of trimming. Nobody buys a cat, dog, bird, or fish to be a bird, cat, dog, fish, or bird farmer, but everybody buys the reptiles and think they're going to be the new Steve Irwin, or something like that. And there's enough mystery that you guys have done real well, shrouding a veil that's penetratable about how much work chondros are, and that if you can't spend $1,000 to buy a green tree, then you shouldn't have a green tree. And I love that marketing approach because that was the attitude that Trooper and I had back in the day. $750 was a hell of a lot of money back in the day, a lot of money. So kudos to you guys. You're doing it right. I'm proud of you, for you. The main thing is the valuation on the animals is what needs to be respected. And then on a lot of the lower end animals, the frogs, lizards, and turtles, they get kids interested so that they will buy a chondro one day. Is tough, and that's our market. The bread and butter stuff, the baseline stuff. Do you want to sell, beef to Sonny's, or do you want to sell beef to, Peter Luger's, or not Sonny's, but I mean McDonald's or something like that. So it's all about volume. And I think, Bill, when one of you guys asked me about the last time I did a show, I said I can't be driving up and down I-95 and I-75. This shit's killing me. Not enough money. You know, and we just need to give it away. We need to give it away right now, and we are practically giving away animals. But I'm not complaining. The good Lord's in control. He's guiding our hands. He's showing me how to survive in ways that I never thought possible. At the end of the day, it ain't about me, buddy. It's about him. So, and you guys are all part of it. You've blessed my socks, and this is a lot of fun doing, and hopefully we can do it again.
We have to, Eugene. We have to do this again. Like we need multiple hours of this.
Yeah, there's so many facets of the story.
There is.
I hope all you guys have read Lizard King. Did all you guys read Lizard King when it came out years ago?
Oh yeah,
I've read some of it. I haven't read all of it, but I've read some of it. I need to finish it.
You need to read all of it because when I read it, man, it made me flash back to so many people, phone calls, and things. I mean, every bit of that is true in there. And my heart goes out to Mike. I love Mikey B. He's a great guy. And it's true in the book. He said, all I wanted was my dad to just come to my baseball game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Ray was just doing what he knew how to do. And that was wheel and deal, you know, and it's just, it's really, really hard. And I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm just, my heart goes out to the families, and it's tough. And like I said, when you ask me, do my kids want to do this? No, they're not going to do this. They probably will like to inherit, you know, whatever's left, but I don't know what's going to be left. We don't know where this industry is going right now with this global economy. You
No
know,
clue.
yeah. And I tell people, it don't matter who the president is, but you better pray, because there will come a day. So me personally, that's what keeps me going. I trust the Lord. Going through a lot this past year. I'm really tested, and I'm okay with it. But I'm a blessed man, and you guys have blessed me tonight by allowing me to share some things. But you know, I want to see more women get into this business. I want to see more women get involved with reptiles, whether it's frogs, turtles, lizards, crocodilians. I don't care.
Yeah.
We need more women. Women make things happen. Men.
Men fuck it up.
Well, let me ask you this. All right, what woman out there is a chondro queen?
Chondro queen?
Yeah,
We don't have a chondro queen. I don't know. I mean, I would feel like if we had a chondro queen, she's from back in the day. But who's the current chondro queen right now? I don't think we have one.
Well, I don't know when this, in closing or whenever you're going to pull the plug on this damn thing. I don't know. But that's what I want to know. I want to meet what gal, what woman, what wife, whatever. I want to meet the chondro queen.
Yeah. Well, listen, since we're there, let's get to the wrap up point of the episode. I'm going to go with my final question. Then we'll go with Bill and Marshall. Okay. And all I have to ask you, Eugene, is 2025, you know, one of the things that's hard for any individual nowadays is wake up and go to their fucking 9 to 5. Like, there's some miserable people out there all because of what they do for a living. But they find the reptile world. But, you know, what does somebody need to do to become a full-time reptile breeder in 2025, you think?
Wow, that's a good question. It can be done, but it's going to take a lot of capital, and not just capital money, but it's going to take a lot of capital energy, and you need to do your homework. And before you do anything, I would tell you to go and visit as many people as you possibly can. The little guys, the big guys, or the so-called big guys, you know, that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm watching a lot of people disappear because they were chasing the money and they didn't have the passion for it, or they weren't called to it.
Yeah.
And you need to do your homework. You really, really do. The business is changing so stinking fast. It really is.
Yep.
But the big thing is, it's not the money, MJ. It's, are you willing to commit the time?
Yep.
And I know that nobody's ever going to pay me for my time.
Yep.
And I won't lie to you. If I didn't have my relationship with God, I'd be one pissed off, bald-headed guy right now. I'm okay with that, because, like I said, of the people that I've had the privilege to meet, I've had to apologize to a lot of people because I've made mistakes. I said things that I shouldn't have. And I thank the good Lord for those people that allowed me to apologize, because I have made, MJ, a ton of mistakes.
Same.
But, you know, I just go hard. And I really, I'm trying to chill out as I've gotten a little bit older. But I still have that drive, you know.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm never going to lose, but I do get my ass kicked a lot, but I'm never going to lose.
Fuck
And
yeah.
it's all about how we handle the circumstances. You know, I mean, that's the whole key thing. You can't change what's happened to you, but how you handle them, you have total control over. So moving forward in the business, I would talk to people. You know, if somebody was really serious, I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll go to the next question real quick. I've had people come here, you know, and I've been, you know, they've blown smoke up my butt. Oh, you're this, you're that, da, 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 da. I want to do this, I want to do that. And I can't tell you how many people I've told them. I said, I tell you what, I will show you everything and anything, but you got to go read 2 books. You got to read this book called Proverbs, written by this little Jewish boy. It's really a cool book. You ought to read it. It's called Proverbs. Then the next book you need to read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Go read those 2 books, bring them back to me. I'll ask you a few questions, and then I will show you the mother lode. Nobody's ever done it. Everybody wants to go to Walmart and buy it instantly.
Yeah. The problem, instant. It's not good, but you'll learn. They'll learn, obviously.
It's a walk.
Yeah.
It's a long walk. You know, my wife gave me everything. This was not her dream, but she loved me. and she gave me everything. And my wife was the woman that empowered me to be able to advocate and do the things that I did. And she was a great reptile person.
Eugene, I just want to say, I'm close to Mark Bailey. It's one of my best friends, and he's had nothing but the most up beautiful things to say about your wife and the way you guys used to work together as a team. And it kind of gets me a little bit emotional thinking about it. But like, man, like I had a good idea of what you and your wife were like just through Mark Bailey,
Well, that's a real compliment, because I mean, Mark is one of my guys that I trust emphatically. Mark is somebody that I don't spend enough time with or see enough, and when we get together, we pick up exactly where we left off. But my wife was really impressed with Mark, and Mark was always so sweet and endearing to her. It came down and visit, and on and on and on, and had a lot of fun. And Mark was really, really, sincere. And Mark's one of the few guys that I don't buy many animals. I haven't bought many animals from people, but Mark's one of the few guys that I would occasionally buy certain things if I needed them. But Mark's a brother from another mother. We've laughed and cried and gone through a lot of things together, and so I appreciate those endearing words. And like I said, I didn't sign up for this, but this is the cards of life, and things happen to you, and regardless, I'm a blessed man, and I'm not done. Trust me, I am not done.
All right, Bill or Marshall, who wants to go next with their wrap-up topic or question?
Bill, go for it.
Yeah, Eugene, you've mentioned and come across so many people, in your life in this industry. Is there a single person, whether you were a 13-year-old kid or after you got back from Vietnam, that you would consider a mentor? Like, if you had to single out one person, who was it that just you really wrapped your mind around and said, this is the guy, this is the philosophy that that I want to emulate, to get you through the next 50 years or whatever?
That's a great question, and I appreciate it. But there's not one person. But I will say this, and I think I know where you're trying to go with this question. But the greatest man I ever met was my father. He wasn't a reptile person. He was an accountant, old school, born in 1912, went through the Depression, saw some tough times. He knows what it is to not have food to eat. He loved me. He clothed me. He made sacrifices for me. And he allowed me as a child at the age of 9 to start keeping snakes. My dad and I weren't close. Greatest man I ever met, my father. Second greatest man that I ever met was my football coach, Jim Nyblack. Jim Nyblack saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. My leadership capabilities, my willingness to do more and to take more pain than anybody else and stuff like that. And I remember one of the hardest times in my life was having to go and see the big man and tell him I was quitting football my senior year. And I had scholarships. I mean, I was 4-year schools and Coast Guard Academy and stuff like that, and on and on and on. And we were awesome. But I got so caught up with the bureaucracy and the politics, and I'll just leave it at that. The third greatest man that poured the most to me in my life would be Dr. Van Meyer. Dr. Van Meyer taught me how to think. And why he poured into me, Dr. Van Meyer had 5 kids, beautiful family. His kids tolerated the snakes. They probably liked him and stuff. But the doc and I had such a relationship for decades. And it started in '66 when I was 15 when I met him. And then in high school. And then I went in the military. And then when I came back from the military, and it was crazy, the miles that we flew and drove together and the things that we did and the things that I was privy to see. And very, very blessed. And then there's tons of other men, but that question has been asked before, Bill, and I appreciate it. But, as far as men, human being men, that my father, Coach Nyblack showed me how much pain I could take. And he saw things in me that I didn't see. And, it was something I had to do. And, he was one of these guys that, I mean, when he died, they almost had the funeral in a football stadium because he affected so many men, as a high school coach, and then in the pros, and then in college and stuff like that. And I remember when I got bit by a water moccasin in high school my junior year. Got bit in the leg. We were out snake hunting, and I caught a moccasin. I threw it in the bag, and damn snake bit through the bag, and I didn't know it. And I passed the bag. I was going to hang the bag up on some brushes. We were going down PG Prairie, going to go to the Okawaha, me and my 2 buddies. And this, anyways, water boxing, when it brushed up against my leg, it just bit right into my thigh, and I thought, holy crap, it was this acid burning thing. But anyways, I remember Coach Nyback coming to the hospital at Shands Teaching Hospital where Ben Meyer worked, and to check on me, and the fun that he kidded me and stuff like that, and on and on and on, and how he heard that I got bit on a Saturday night, beats the hell out of me. But the big man, I swear he must have had a direct line to God or something like that. But I appreciate you, Bill, asking me that question. Those are the three biggest men. And then the greatest woman that I ever met was my mother.
What a great answer, Eugene. Thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful, man. All right, Marshall, send us home, buddy.
I don't really have a question. I just, I want to say that you've been one of the biggest inspirations for me. Mentor, taking me. I felt like you took me under your wing when I was just kind of getting into it. And I'll end it with a story that maybe will make you smile a little bit. It's kind of Bill's story, but I'm going to take over a little bit. So Von Meerop, I sold Bill, I sold Bill ended up with an animal that I produced that was from Von Meerop animal that I purchased directly from you. It was one of my first 3 or 4 chondros, and the female of this animal that Bill ended up getting was produced by Hillary Webb, who also worked for you back in the day.
Small world, right? Small world.
So from that pairing came an animal called Jaeger, who's been one of Bill's, greatest producers and gone on to, father all kinds of crazy designer animals. Well,
hundreds of animals.
Yeah. So one of Von Meerop's relatives, I don't know if it was a niece or daughter, Bill, maybe you can add to the story, contacted Bill and wanted to get an animal that was from
her grandfather.
And he was able to provide that to her. So
she called me. What was it? His granddaughter, Bill?
Granddaughter. Yes, sir. Granddaughter.
She was getting her PhD in something in Illinois.
Yeah.
I forget, but somehow she got a hold of
the animal.
She contacted me with that question, and the only person I could think of was Bill. That came to mind that had the flexibility that could work around her schedule because she was insanely busy with school, and I think her husband was a PhD or something like that. I forget, but that's what, Bill, 3 years ago?
Eugene, it was 10 years ago.
Oh, get out of here.
10.
Are you kidding me? Damn.
Damn.
Oh, you're lying.
No.
10 years ago, she got a beautiful yellow Neo from Jaeger, which is the animal that Marshall's referring to, turned high yellow, phenomenal female animal. And I've talked to her in the last, probably 2 years ago.
Really?
She loves it. Great story.
Wow. You see, Bill, that's what makes this worthwhile, because how did I know? How did Trooper know? How did Van Meyer know? I'll tell you something I want to compliment, and this is to glorify God, but also honor my wife. And this is appropriate. At the memorial service for Cindy, my daughter came walking in wearing Cindy's wedding dress. My daughter wore Mom's wedding dress. And, there was a lot of tough times that we went through with the illness and stuff like that. But she walked in. Kurt Harvsmeyer, he's a brother of mine. He married Cindy and I, 31 plus years ago. I looked at Kurt. Kurt looked at me. And there's about 300 plus people at this memorial service. People flew in from various states, and I mean, it was impressive, and I was honored. And I looked at my daughter, and she said, "Dad, do you recognize it?" And I couldn't believe it. And the reason I'm telling you this story is, I looked at Kurt and I said, "How could I have ever imagined in my wildest dreams the day that I married this woman that I will always love, whether I get married again or not, doesn't matter." And to the thought that the unborn daughter one day would be wearing this dress. I mean, this is surreal. And these are the crazy things that God does. And he says, "Yeah, you think you're good? Here, chew on this. Think about this." what you're telling me about this lady, this girl wanting something from her grandfather, and the fact that we were even able to provide her, what a blessing you are to me. What a blessing we are to the doc that, enough of you guys. I mean, I let a lot of things go because I felt like, man, we have scattered these chondros. We planted plenty of seed. They're fertilized everywhere, and you're part of it. You're good soil, and you continue to do a great job. So I think that made me think of what my daughter did. Totally blew my mind. And the fact that she wanted something, and that I don't remember how she got my number. I think she got it from Dr. Van Meyer's daughter, Elizabeth, who took care of his estate when he passed away. Yeah. But I don't know all the details. And, that was during COVID. I couldn't go see him. I couldn't go to the memorial service. In fact, I don't think they had a memorial service. I don't know what they did. Anyways, I wasn't in the privy to know. I wasn't included in all those details, and it's just family, and I respect family. Doesn't matter if I like it, but the fact that we were able to, weave that pattern. And so you're saying you talked to her 2 years ago and she still has the animal?
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. That rocks.
Yeah.
Man, that's freaky and stuff. And I know the doc would probably get a kick out of that. I could hear he'd have some smart Javanese expression for that.
I think it's the only snake she has. And her whole impetus about getting it was because she knew that it was linked to her grandfather, who had passed away at the time.
Wow.
Well, no, the doc just died a couple of years ago.
Okay. Well, then
he hasn't been gone that long. He died. I think it'll be 3 years this October.
Okay.
Or it was 3 years this past. It was during COVID. And, I think he was 93 or 94 years old. I forget exactly. You can find his book on Amazon, Dr. Bob. It's self-autobiography of Dr. Van Meyer. It's about 500 or 600 pages. It's a great read. He describes growing up in the Netherlands, East Indies, which is now, Java in Indonesia. He's just a great storyteller. He was an incredible artist. It was amazing what he could do with watercolors. His articulation of various specimens was insane. And God, he did some incredible stuff. And I remember he had a greenhouse off of his bedroom over there in the southwest part of Gainesville where he lived. And he had all these lush plants, and he made it as thick as a jungle, like for Indonesia, because he liked the smell of the humus and the moisture in the plants, to come in his bedroom, and on and on and on. And then he had all his green trees, in various cages and outdoor enclosures that we made loose in the greenhouse, but in a cage, with the plants. And he was a big kid. We had a lot of fun. I made a lot of cool cages, did a lot of cool stuff. And I'm very, very blessed. Man, thanks for bringing that up, Bill. I hope that.
No, thank you, Marshall, for bringing it up.
Don't give Bill the credit. Don't give Bill.
Give Marshall credit. It's a great way to end the episode. It was a great story, and thank you, Marshall, for bringing that up.
Yeah,
yes,
thanks, Marshall.
Thank you very much. I forgive you for all the other things I've said.
Hey, Eugene.
I say it in love. Hey, brother. I say it in love.
Hey, Eugene. Go ahead.
Real quick. Bill, how old are you now?
59.
Marshall.
52.
MJ, you 20, 23, 24?
39.
He wishes.
What a kid.
Hey, Eugene, this was one of the best episodes. I got to tell you, man, it's, we spoke over a year ago over the phone. Remember, I was having dinner with my wife. You told me to go back to dinner. I was like, but no. I was like, I wanted to stay on the phone with you because how excited I was to talk to you.
You can call me anytime.
I will. But to have you on this show really means a lot. I know not only to me, but to Bill and Marshall. And I got to say, open invitation. Anytime you're ready to come back on, Eugene, to do a part 2, part 3, part 4, it's all yours. Okay? You let me know.
Gentlemen, it is your show. I'm honored to be included and to be thought of. Let me know when you want to do something different and whatever. I mean, there's so many things.
A lot.
We can talk about the reptile industry on a national, global level.
Yes.
All the things that are taking place with the money and that question about if somebody wanted to invest into this business, it's going to take somebody. It's a good business, but you'll never get rich. But it beats working for a living.
Yep.
And that's the difference.
Amen,
that's
brother.
the difference.
Amen, bro.
Are you willing to work hard, and how hard?
Yep.
And this is tough. It really is. And I think in today's society, guys, with all the Pop-Tart technologies and instant gratifications and the things that are taking place, I don't know. I mean, there is a gold mine out there to be dug, but are you willing to do the digging?
Eugene, real quick before you leave, what was that saying you had on Chad's episode about the day you stop swinging your axe? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, that's that. I learned that from somebody else, man. That's not mine. I copied somebody. But no, there was an article I read talking about, the only way you're going to find out. In other words, if you put your axe down, do you hear anybody else cutting wood? And a lot of times I put my axe down, and this has to do with a lot of the advocating and lobbying and legislative stuff that I've done for years and years and years. Never got paid for it. Nobody asked me to do it. I just did it because I know it needed to be done. And I never expected to get a thank you or an attaboy or somebody even buy me a beer. I don't do what I do for recognition. I do it because the good Lord put it on my heart. So it doesn't matter to me if somebody has got a chainsaw or an axe. I'm going to go do, MJ, what the good Lord called me to do is to advocate and to serve. And so there's nothing greater in this world than to love your brother and to serve others. And, love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness. When you love people, man, then you realize you can forgive them. And when you forgive them, then you realize how much you love them and what it does for you. So it's because there's people that are going to piss you off. It's impossible not to. It's easy to preach when you're tired at the end of the day and you're hanging out with buddies and you're reminiscing and stuff like that. But tomorrow morning is going to come with the vengeance of hell. And you're going to have to deal with stuff. And it's just, it's okay. I know we're going to be okay. And like I told you, I cannot and will not be defeated, but I am sure getting my ass kicked a lot. And I won't lie to you. I break down and cry. I mean, there's sometimes I go, Lord, why am I doing this? And, God told me to read Job years ago, and I studied Job, and everything I've gone through made me realize stuff. So life is full of surprises. It's full of suffering, and it is hard. But you know what? We're here for a short season. Let's make the most of it. Yeah. Let's rock and roll. I mean, I'm telling you, I really believe the snakes are God's favorite pet. Yeah, I really do. And we're gonna. I don't know. I just gotta shut up. But I love you guys. No,
love you too, man.
And I love this. I love this industry, hobby, vocation, whatever you want to call it. But I've always wanted to, like I said, take it to the next level. And I wish more people were. And I wish people would come visit. I've got nothing to hide.
I'll come visit you. No problem, Eugene. I'll be up shit. You say less. I'll be there, man. I'll come see you.
Well, there's only 3 days out of the year that Mexicans don't sweat in Florida. And you know what days those are? Yesterday, tomorrow, and today. So you're screwed.
Hey, I'll sweat. I don't care, bro. I'm on my way. I'm there.
Hey, I hope they have Whataburger in Florida.
Listen, you drink Modelo?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Do you drink Modelo Negra?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I like the Negra Modelo. That's my favorite. I'll bring it.
All right. I'll bring it. I got it. I got a refrigerator. Right. We got electricity here in Florida.
Hey, Eugene. Hey, I cannot wait to have you back on, and I appreciate you so much. But guys, do me a favor, give it up. It's a wrap for Eugene Bessette, ladies and gentlemen.
What a night. What a night.
Thank you, fellas.
Thanks, Eugene.
Thank you, Eugene. Have a good night. Hey. We'll talk soon.
All right. Sweet dreams to everybody. Love y'all.
Love you, Gene. Take care.
See ya.
Fucking legend, bro. Holy shit, that was great. I mean, I could easily go another 2.5 hours. I'm so pumped up right now. That guy's the fucking man. Holy shit. Dude, no wonder you like him so much, Marshall. Like, that's the fucking man right there, dude.
Yeah.
Fuck.
These are the episodes that I like the best, man, where we're not so much talking about nuts and bolts, but it's the stories, the relationships. That's the stuff that the nuts and bolts you can get on Facebook and you can read about that stuff. You can get the book. It's the stories and the relationships that's what gets me the most excited.
Me too, man. And I want to say real quick before we hear on how Bill thought tonight went, like the relationships, he kept mentioning like how important the relationships are. And that's one thing, like I love the animals. And at first, all I gave a fuck were the animals, but the relationships is why I'm at where I'm at today, man. If it wasn't for the goddamn people that I have in my life and that I value, there's no fucking way I would be where I'm at right now in life. And so when he kept mentioning that, it just kept getting me more and more excited. Bill, what do you think about tonight overall, Bill?
Yeah, I was going to just echo what you said. 50 years Eugene has been in this, and that hasn't changed. The relationships, like what we talk about it all the time. Just how important the people in this community are to all of us. I would have never met you guys. I would have never met Gary. I would have never met. I could name 100 people that I would have never met and became friends with if it wasn't for the community, and the relationships. It's so important, man. To me, it's so important.
For sure.
Especially to a guy, I spend 90% of my time by myself. I come out here, I work in the room, I do what I'm doing here. But it's the relationships, and it's the times, it's the Tinleys, it's the Daytonas, it's the Fair Fest, it's my party here. Those are the times to me that are the most important and the most special. So I'm glad a lot of things have changed since Eugene's day, but that hasn't changed.
Yeah. Marshall, what do you think about having your mentor on, man?
Indeed, it was amazing. Like I said, man, these are the episodes that I like the best, talking about the golden days and, how they figured stuff out. There was no Eugene for Eugene and Trooper to learn from.
Yeah.
They had to figure it out themselves.
Yeah. They were the ones. That's wild to even think about,
They paved the way for all of us today.
Yeah. Crazy. Hey, now, Marshall, I got Eugene. I get to take that star, but you need to get Trooper now. That's on you. You got to get Trooper, buddy. Figure it out somehow.
Or get Eugene to get Trooper.
We already talked about. I want Marshall. I want this guy to go to work. I want Marshall to bring us Trooper. God damn it! Because Marshall should have brought us Eugene. I brought us Eugene. So
you've been saying for like a year you had Eugene.
I still got him. I brought him. So you could say and got him. So come on, let's go, Marshall. Listen, you got the albino. Bring Trooper. Everything comes full circle, buddy. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. No, you guys are awesome. I know Bill's about to go to dinner soon. Bill, you're the fucking man for sure. Marshall, you guys are my Eugene Bessettes. Hope you guys realize that, okay? That's how I look at you guys. So I really respect the living shit out of you two. Red Mountain Herps on Instagram. And the mayor, Phoenix Reptiles. Go give a follow and give it up for my boy Marshall and Bill, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next week, boys.
See you guys.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you to anyone who tapped in on this fucking legendary episode. This was so legendary. So if this was your first time hanging out, and if you want to see more Eugene Bessette, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, select all. You'll be reminded of every single podcast. When we bring Eugene Bessette back, you'll get that notification, all right? And of course, if you want exclusive content, if you want to get more behind the scenes, but also get unreleased episodes that I have coming up, then come join the Trap Talk Patreon family. You can join the Patreon family by clicking the first link in the description below. As soon as you join the Trap Talk Patreon family, you get connected to a Discord. There's an amazing Instagram group chat that's popping. And yeah, it's awesome, man. Shout out to all my Patreon members. You guys are my heart, man. I really, really appreciate all the support. Don't forget, Trap Talk Reptile Network is 7 days a week. The only reptile network that is 7 days a week. There's the schedule right there. Read it and weep. And before we let you guys go, you guys know what the deal is with my sponsors. Give it up. For the #1 PVC enclosures in the reptile game, no better place to visit than Focus Cube Habitats. Excited for today's sponsor, Focus Cube Habitats, #1 enclosures in the reptile game by far. Everything you see behind me are 3x2x2 PVC design enclosures by Steven and Ashley over at Focus Cube Habitats. They're based out of Texas. If you head over to the website, you can select from over 30 plus different enclosure designs that they've done. Two of the hardest working people in the reptile hobby today, and I'm so excited to add more Focus Cube enclosures. So much again, Steven and Ashley. I appreciate the 5+ years of partnerships that we've had together. Looking forward to growing more. Head over to FocusCubeHabitats.com. Head over to their YouTube channel, subscribe, and check them out on Instagram. Thank you so much, Focus Cube Habitat. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available, green tree python wise, and be ready for quite the 2025 Green Tree Python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the Green Tree Python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the Green Tree Python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Cheers.